Okay, we are officially live on YouTube. Feel free to start when you're ready. Oh, good, it's 6 o'clock. Perfect timing.
Good evening and welcome to the Henrietta Town Board meeting for October 13th, 2021. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Here.
Councilmember Stafford,
Here.
Councilmember Safranek,
Here.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Here.
Supervisor Schultz.
Here. We'll begin tonight with a silent prayer followed by the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I make a motion to approve the minutes for September 22nd, 2021 of our regular town board meeting.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. So this is our first meeting where we've folded the special use permit hearings into the town board meeting. And we did that because we've had some issues with overlap between the two meetings. And because they were separate meetings, we couldn't jump in the agenda. So now we will be able to do that going forward. But first up, we will have special use permit application number 2021-56, Chappie's Hots, to operate a restaurant with dine-in, takeout, and delivery. We have a representative from Chappie's. Come on up and speak, introduce yourself and what your affiliation with the application is.
Hi, my name is Fred Bennings, and I am one of the advisors / managers for Chappie Hots to represent them today.
Great. Feel free to move that mic up if it'll make it easier for you. Why don't you tell us a little about what you want to do? And
Well, we want to just, we have one location right now currently in North Charli, and we wanted to expand to Henrietta for the community, to have a place where college kids, high school kids can come after a game or after the movies to be able to have food for lunch, dinner, dining area where they can come and be safe and have a good time.
And you said you've got one location currently in Charli.
Yes,
And this is going into what used to be Henrietta Hots, is that correct?
yes.
So I assume the building's not going to need much in the way of modifications, maybe we'll call it a facelift, a little refreshment.
Yeah, a little paint, cleaning, scrubbing, that kind of thing, but it was remodeled less than about a year or two ago, so not much major things done. Yep.
Great. Any questions?
Will you serve any alcohol there?
No, not at this time, no.
And the other location you mentioned was in Charli?
Yes.
Is it near Roberts?
It's roughly about maybe 2 miles, 2.5 miles from Roberts, yes.
Okay. How many employees do you think you might have at this location?
Roughly, it's gonna be about, I would say, between the two cooks, chefs, about maybe 9 to 10 employees.
Okay. And if approved, when are you thinking you guys might open?
We try to do a soft opening for October 24th, will be a soft opening, and then grand opening November 1st.
Okay, thank you.
That's it? Okay, thank you.
Any, no.
Oh, okay.
Going down the line here. Any outdoor seating at that location?
Yes, we're gonna have in the very front, the patio. It's gonna be outdoor sitting in the very front of the building. We're gonna have chairs and tables there.
we have to leave that part of the?
We don't have to do it right away. It's just something we would like to do. The patio is there, so we don't have to have it there immediately.
Okay, yeah, we'll have to figure that, well, if you were gonna wait till the spring to add it, the code will probably be changed by then. The way the code reads today, you actually need a separate special use permit for outdoor seating. What we intend to do is make it all part of one application that, you know, indicates whether it's gonna be indoor dining, outdoor dining, takeout, that type of stuff. And so that way it simplifies the process, but if that's not ready in time, you will have to come back for a special use for outdoor seating. That's just the
Okay.
way the code reads today.
Okay. So we have to wait until, is that spring, you said, next spring?
Well, it has to be a separate application, unfortunately,
Okay,
right, Don? There's
That's
no way to
neat.
basically at this hearing,
I was trying to
Only
get it
because-
added in now, but I think we got
well,
it.
we'll
Yeah.
see.
Just because it wasn't advertised, so.
Right, right.
Yeah, winter's coming, so I guess we're gonna
That's
wait
right.
till spring. Yeah.
You won't be sitting outside in a month or two. I'm done.
Millie or Lisa?
think you got it all.
Yeah, I think it's
Mhm.
pretty easy that you obviously have done this before and it's a location that is perfect fit for what you're doing. So I think this is the proverbial no-brainer. So,
Okay.
which I'm sure there's lots of people who say that they're politicians. They're perfect for no-brainers.
Anything from,
Anything from the audience? Any questions? And that includes online? Hearing none, then can I get a motion for application 2021-56?
I make a motion to approve application 2021-056 Chappie Hots, 3553 West Henrietta Road to operate a restaurant with dine-in, takeout, and delivery in a commercial B1 zone district with mixed-use redevelopment area overlay. Tax account number 161.11-1-13, or more particularly described on file in the town's clerk's office and posted online at www.henrietta.org/projects. Planned hours of operations are 7 days a week from 11 a.m. to 3 a.m.
Second?
Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Congratulations. If you'd like to do something with a grand opening ribbon cutting, that type of stuff, feel free to email me at supervisor@henrietta.org. I'll hook you up with the Chamber of Commerce. They do that kind of stuff. In fact, we just had one today for the Taco Bell over on Lehigh Station Road. So
Awesome.
Yep,
Thank
great.
you.
Congratulations. and good luck.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Hope
Welcome
to see you guys
Henrietta.
there in the future.
Thank you.
Good.
Yep.
I think it's great for young people.
Okay, great.
next up, we have the public hearing for the proposed Lehigh Ridge subdivision. This is predominantly a seeker hearing. There's the town's actions in this is not to approve or deny the actual application. They don't require a special use permit. The town board's actions will be, however, in addition to the seeker process, we will be determining, because it's a New York State cluster development, we will be essentially making the decision on whether to accept their proposed open land. So, you know, basically for New York State Town Law 278 clustering, they can essentially push the houses closer together. They leave a bunch of open land. That open land has to be preserved as open land, so it can't be subsequently developed. That could become town park. It could have conservation easements placed over it. And according to our town code, you can put agricultural easements over it so that it can be used for farming. or agricultural use. But that's the town board's role in this particular. However, because we had a community hearing in front with the town board, we'd had a public hearing, we've been involved in a bunch of this stuff. We had asked to be the lead agency for seeker, so that's what we're doing. Just a quick note on the seeker process. Basically, it's to work to get feedback from the community, as well as other experts and our own judgment to identify the things that we think will be potential adverse impacts to the environment. In this case, environment doesn't just mean ecological, it means traffic, noise, the character of the neighborhood. There's a long list of things in there. And so it's our job to collect the feedback from the residents and put those lists together as far as these are the things that we think are potential adverse impacts. It's then the job of the developer to propose solutions that mitigate those adverse impacts. If they're able to mitigate everything, they get what's called a negative declaration, which says there's nothing, no issues, and the project can move forward. If they are unable or unwilling to mitigate all of those, they get what's called a positive declaration, at which point they have a couple options, including an environmental impact study, which again, I'm not going to go into all that stuff, but that's kind of how the process works. Ultimately, the decision on the site plan, that is at the planning board, not with the town board, but again, we'll be doing the seeker portion of this. And then once that's complete, if they get a negative deck, then they can proceed with the site plan. So I just wanted everybody to understand what's involved in the process and what we're doing here. So with that said, by all means, present to the public as to what your guys are looking to do. How would you like me to orient? I think we've seen it a bunch, so I'd rather keep it pointed at the audience. We've got the stuff up on the screen as well, so.
Good evening. Martin Yanda from BME Associates for Lairwood Estates LLC. Today with me is our client Bruce Howlett, also available to address your comments. Tonight we would like to initiate the seeker process as mentioned and get your input. The proposal is for Lehigh Ridge subdivision, 113 single-family lots within an R115 zoning district on 69.5 acres. Property is located to the south of Authors Avenue and Evans Road, which both connect to Lehigh Station Road to the north. Property consists of 7 adjoining tax parcels and is bounded by, on the north side, by single-family homes of Nevins Road and Authors Avenue, on the east side by lands of the Rugby Club, on the south side by Thruway, and on west side are vacant land, including Lehigh Valley Trail. Property is currently vacant. It is the former Belfry Golf Course. It is identified as abandoned or vacant farmland in Town Farmland Protection Plan. Proposal is to develop the property as a cluster subdivision per section 278 of Town Law and chapter 245 of Town Code. Planning Board indicated support of cluster subdivision design during sketch plan and preliminary plan reviews and meetings. As part of that process and as required by town law, a conventional plan was prepared for town's review. With R115 lot standards of 15,000 square foot minimum lot size, 80-foot minimum lot width, and 40-foot front setback, the yield was 113 lots on the property. The proposed cluster subdivision includes 113 lots as well and about 26 acres of open space. Proposed lot standards are minimum area of 8,500 square feet, lot width 60 feet, front setback 35 feet, side setback 8 feet, and rear setback 10 feet. The 26-acre open space includes 4 parcels. The largest is about 19 acres at north, which is creating large buffer between the existing homes and proposed development. Clustering provides the following benefits. It provides, as mentioned, 26 acres of open space, which represents approximately 37% of the entire site. This open space provides substantial buffer between neighborhoods. It provides passive recreation space for trails to connect these neighborhoods and land for key link in the Lehigh Valley Trail. It also reduces the size of the disturbance and it shortens the roads and utility infrastructure. So there'll be less maintenance for the town in the future. Proposed subdivision layout accounted for site features such as presence of 300-foot wide power authority easement along the north property line and presence of gas main easements through the site, as well as several ponds constructed as a part of the Belfry Golf Course. I think that happened in early 2003, I believe. The results is a plan that utilizes existing terrain and avoids utility easement areas. It also accommodates Lehigh Valley Trail, incorporates open space plan with trail system, and provides buffers to the surrounding area. Proposed access is by connections to Authors Avenue and Nevins Road with an internal loop connecting both roads. Main roads are town-dedicated streets. We are proposing sidewalk along the loop road connecting Nevins Road to Authors Avenue, which also includes approximately 600-foot long sidewalk extension along Authors Avenue to connect to existing sidewalk at Authors and Wallman intersection. The sidewalks will also link with trail system in open space area. For additional town request, applicant secured construction access from East Henrietta Road through Rugby Lands to avoid construction traffic on Nivens Road and Authors Avenue. Also, traffic study was requested by the town. The scope of the study was prepared based on town's input, and completed study was submitted for review to the town's traffic consultant, Barton and Legudis. The consultant's comments were addressed, and now the study will be reviewed by the New York State DOT, specifically for need of traffic light at the Authors Avenue and Lehigh Road intersection. The study finds that even correct conditions meet some warrants for traffic light in this location. Other items discussed with town is traffic calming on Authors Avenue using raised pedestrian crosswalk and new sidewalk along Nevins Road to improve pedestrian safety. Comprehensive stormwater management report was prepared per town and New York State DEC standards to address water quality and quantity on the site. Majority of the site drains north and west. It's about 65 acres. And it discharges to as well at the northwest corner of property west from the end of Nevins Road as it is today. Then it is conveyed across the adjacent land to large wetland. That wetland is approximately 60 acres of size. 1/3 of the site about 30 acres drains to the existing pond south of Authors Avenue. The existing pond does not have an outlet structure and causes wet backyards of the existing residential lots along the north property line. The proposed stormwater management plan will enhance existing 4 ponds, which were, as I mentioned before, constructed for the Belfry Golf Course. It will enhance them with outlet structures to provide detention and quality control. It also proposes a new pond near the current end of Nevins Road before drainage is discharged to the west. This plan also reduces the drainage area to Authors Avenue from 30 acres to only 3 acres by redirecting the drainage from that existing pond to the west to connect to the 4 western ponds. This will provide relief to current poor drainage conditions at the adjacent residential backyards and big improvement. At this point, this pond is not functioning. It doesn't have outlet. Basically, water raises up and overflows, seeps through and creates wet conditions in those backyards. Public water and sanitary sewer will be provided by connections at Nevins Road and Authors Avenue. Both water main and sewer have enough capacity to serve this subdivision. It is expected that this 113 lot subdivision will be developed in 250+ lot sections. With that, I would like to ask the board if you have any questions.
So one of the questions, it looks like you guys, correct me, this is a updated plan from the last one we've seen?
That's correct, yes.
And it looks like you addressed the issue, the resident had talked about a pond, drainage pond being near his house, and it looks like that was moved.
Yes, that's correct. We moved it to sufficient distance from that pond, from that property.
Although in that rendering, is that the right one? That's the current one? 'Cause that's a different
Yes.
rendering than I've got
Yeah.
here.
That's the current rendering, yeah.
So I might be looking on the overlap of the,
Mhm.
well, I don't seem to have. Let me just see what I've got here.
Yeah, it's a little different than what we have, isn't it? The ponds.
Right.
I feel like there's-
Becky, is that in one of the PDFs?
I'm just checking on my end on the OneDrive here, but I'll drop what I have in there just so you have it for right now.
There's a PH, no, it says PH dash all.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I'm looking at, but it's
It's a
not-
little different.
Yeah, we've got
I don't know if there's another file besides just.
well, the one we've got basically shows the parcels and houses overlaid on the current.
I just dropped the one that I'm showing on the screen in OneDrive. It's just called Lehigh Ridge.
Okay, thank you. Come on. You know, if anybody else sees it,
Mm-mm.
we still don't see it yet.
I see a little green circle on my end.
Yeah, it's down towards the bottom. She just came in as
Oh,
Lehigh.
just appeared.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess my question is, if I look at the pond
Inside the folder.
near, to the north of 113, is there a reason that pond is there and not, I just don't know if that gets too close to the. Is that like a 4-bay? Is that a drainage structure? There's a 4-bay and then the main bay?
It's the smaller part is 4-bay and the main part of the pond is the larger pond.
And what's that green?
This is just a green infrastructure. It's a bioretention
Gotcha.
where the water infiltrates first through the media before it gets to the pond. So the pond is located about 100 feet from
Is it
the
that?
north
Okay.
property line and another 150 feet from the houses. And the soil in this area is pretty tight. So, and the pond is pretty low in comparison with the grades.
Okay.
All the drainage is then directed to the west. So actually from the drainage coming to this area under current condition, you are redirecting most of it from those backyards.
And obviously, we don't have the terrain data. I'm just curious why it's there and not more into what I'll call open space B. And I don't know, I just know, like I said, that at a previous hearing, someone who lived up near that direction was complaining that the pond was too close to their house. I don't know if it's, I should have pulled up the old rendering to see how much it's moved. Or maybe if they're in the audience. So it looks like Syed, Bolton's, Coons, Knapp's, or Porchella. If any of those individuals are in the audience in which to address. I just wonder, specifically, I'm just talking about this pond, if any of those residents, those are the houses that are near this pond.
Is there somebody on, look like there's.
Is there anyone online from one of those houses? So again, it was Syed, Bolton, Kuhn, Knapp, or Porchella, or more accurately, 85 Wallman, 89 Wallman, 93 Wallman, 236 Nevins, or 235 Nevins. Chris? Chris, you might want to sit up here because I'm gonna probably have some additional questions for you.
I would expect nothing less.
Yeah.
Chris Martin, Director of Engineering.
You might want, you could use the mic. There's, okay,
Yeah.
that's fine too. I was gonna say there's also a mic at the side table.
Yeah, I remember from some of the neighborhood meetings that we've had and also from the public hearing, it was one of the gentlemen that lived at the corner of Nevins and where the new roads comes out. He
Mhm.
had a concern not only with the pond, but also for the trail that went behind the pond. It was close to his house. And I think his requests were to have the pond relocated further away. And also they had the trail, so it wouldn't come up behind his house.
So is
Those
that
are the
what,
two items that I remember.
is that trail? I'm seeing that dotted line that
That's
goes right
correct.
along the north boundary. Yeah, I would absolutely agree that that trail needs to be relocated.
Yeah, I mean, I think we could squeeze it, north of lot 113 maybe. And that would bring it away from the residents along Nevins Road.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that.
And then I think I also remember there was a concern about drainage going to the north. And that some type of swale or ditch would be put in to make sure that none of the water from this parcel would flow into the backyards. But that's something we can certainly work with the applicant's engineer on.
So basically with this, we should identify those as potential issues and then you guys can deal with it in site plan. Is that?
Yeah, during the preliminary subdivision process. We've had the public hearing, but no other action has been taken until, of course, seeker is completed by the town board.
Okay. Away from homes. Okay. Great. Other questions, comments from the board? I've got a bunch of them, so, but I don't want to hog. If you guys got other stuff, by all means, bring it up.
I got a couple real quick. So it's going to be, these homes are going to be built on 26 acres of a 69
acre parcel from what it looks, what you're saying, correct?
The it's 69.5 acres. The open space is 26 acres. So you got about
43.
43 left.
Okay. And on your, on the environmental assessment form, and under D1, C, it says that there's 128.5 acres owned by the applicant. What is planned with the other land there?
You're saying 128 acres?
Yeah, that's what you guys have right
Yeah.
here, 128.56 acres adjoining this property.
I assume that's the land
That's-
south of the thruway?
Yeah, that's the land to the south, which is not part of this application.
Okay, that's on the other side of the thruway.
Correct.
Yes.
And that's in the
Okay.
rural residential, so it can't be
Okay.
combined with this. Anyways, I mean, it's also clearly separated by that throughway. So. That was the rest of the golf course. Remember, they bought the golf course, so.
Mhm.
That's all I have right this minute.
Are there any plans of any parkland with this open space at all? 26 acres, that's open space, anything?
At this point, it's for passive recreation trails,
Okay.
and it would be available if dedicated to the town to all neighbors.
So essentially green belt, is that what would be proposing?
I would ask
Yeah.
Bruce, yeah.
And I assume you're not proposing any kind of HOA. These are all individually owned homes and. Okay.
Yep.
Obviously, the private drive is gonna have to have a shared
It will have
driveway or agreement, but
maintenance agreement.
yeah. Did I hear you guys say you were committing to sidewalks on Nevins? Correct, okay. And what about the potential speed control on Authors, the tabletop crosswalk? We heard you definitely say the construction entrance, you committed to that. And you said you were doing positive drainage on the south end of Wallman, so where there currently are some issues, existing issues, your drainage plan will help draw the water away from those homes and into your drainage. That then, was it to the west is where it's sending it?
That's correct. It will be redirected completely from that area, so.
And I know you put in the application, well, application is not the right word, but petitioned the state for the lighted Authors and provided some traffic information. I just, Bruce, I don't know if you saw it. I updated my letter from last May, again, urging the state to consider putting that in. I'd also had previously reached out back in May to the school district who would be in support of a light to help clear that, to clear that out. So if you haven't seen that, let me know. Now that I think about it, I may have sent it around internally to make sure it was okay. So it's ready to go.
Haven't seen it, but good.
Yeah, I will, let me put a note here to send you that letter. So I basically updated my May letter. And hopefully, one of the things that they said is that there weren't warrants for the light. It's one of the things that frustrates me with the state is that everything takes in formula and they don't seem to common sense does not necessarily enter into it. And then just looking, okay, I was just looking for the reroute of the Lehigh Valley Trail. Okay. already talked about the move path. Proposed is green belt. One of the questions, the sidewalks along. So it looks like there's sidewalks along the main connector road that loops Nevins to Authors.
That's
But
correct. There's a sidewalk just to make that loop connection to Authors.
But currently you don't have sidewalks going down the cul-de-sacs, is that correct?
That's correct. We are not proposing those sidewalks, especially if there is this huge contribution towards Nevins Road.
Right. Is there any connection from the neighborhood? You know, one of the things I'm looking at to the south of lot 13, it looks like it's in the gas easement anyways. So the very southern, you might want to consider, and this is just a suggestion, that's not a requirement. I'm thinking you might want to consider whether you want to do some kind of easement there or even make it part of the green belt to have a spur of that trail come into this neighborhood for people in this neighborhood. Otherwise, they have to go all the way north under the power lines and then back. And again, the folks in parcel 13 can't build there anyways because it's inside the gas easement. So that might be a good spot to bring the trail in. Would I prefer there be a sidewalk there? I would, but I get that from a vehicular traffic, you're not looking at massive amounts. I guess, are these going to be proposed gutters or curbs?
Proposed gutters.
Okay. I find those are easier to walk along and move off to the side than curbs typically.
Yep.
So Chris, those are just, like I said, suggestions, things to think about when you're looking at the site plan.
Steve, I think the trails are kind of open right now as far as we were definitely gonna move it from the north side of that one pond, but through there.
Can we make sure that you're speaking into the microphone? Those of us virtually can't hear so well.
So the trails can be modified, I guess is the bottom.
Right.
They can be in the planning sequence.
Yeah, you might want to bring the Lehigh Valley Trail. So again, it's going to continue south when you can actually see it on the old image, underlying image where it's going to continue south towards coming in off of Hosmer's property. But your interconnect, you may want to just bring that in. I realize you're following, or it looks like you're following the existing trail. You just might want to bring that over. Oh, I see the sidewalks on the other side. Yeah.
Yeah.
Either way, I mean, you're going to have to connect into that anyway, so. Yeah, just like I said, I would take a look to keep the trails away from the existing households so that people aren't seeing a bunch of folks walk by there. It's one thing if you buy the house knowing that that trail's there. It's another thing if the trail is added after you've been living there for, years, so. Other comments?
Ms. Howlett, I don't recall, are you building these homes or are you gonna have someone else build them? Like how?
Ryan Holmes will be building the homes.
Okay. Is that the same builder from Howlett Farms or?
Correct.
Okay.
Howlett Acres. What's the, I think we talked about this before, what's the expected house size? Average?
1,700 square feet.
And are these similar to the other that they're 2-story?
Correct. If you looked at Howlett Acres, they'd be real similar, but a less expensive house than it's being built at Howlett Acres. It'd be
Okay.
a step down, more of a true starter home.
Okay.
Prices are changing drastically up and down from where we started this project, but it was originally in the low twos. I would say it's, 250 to 275 area now, but still definitely that's the area we're targeting.
Okay.
And with the mad swings of construction prices, who knows where?
Yeah.
The good news is at least some of the stuff's come back down, but. Any other questions before I throw it open for public comment?
No, sir.
Is it? For the 69 acres and you're gonna keep 26 open, but of the 69 acres, is that all, could that all be buildable? Or is there a section?
So like the ponds and
Right.
so in the conventional plan, they have to lay it out with 15,000 square foot.
Outside of the pond.
Outside of the ponds, right.
Okay, so how much acreage is actually buildable of that 69?
So out of the 69, I believe there's about 7 acres of the ponds
Okay.
approximately.
And so they, like I said, the way the clustering rules work, they have to put together a conventional plan. And then that meets all of the town code. And once they've done that, that determines the number of units that they can then cluster.
Who's going to be maintaining the 26 acres of open space in the ponds?
If it's green belt,
So it's going to come to the town.
that would come to the town.
So
So
that's what
most
I-
likely what would happen is we would create a park district for this.
So we would maintain
And they
cutting
get the
it.
consolidated green belt charge to maintain that. Yep.
So the concept of it a little bit is to have more of a open space that is a low cost for the town to maintain. If you put a pollinator type mix in there that has longevity, you really only have to mow it every 3 years. But it's better if you mow it once or twice a year. And then it keeps everything down, but you don't have to mow it like lawn and you
Mhm.
just let it go to, you have different day length pollinator plants in there that pollinate different times. But a lot of it's a clover type thing that only gets so big and it stays green the whole time. It's not grass items with flowers, but you won't have huge expense. You could mow along the edges of the pathway or something like that if you wanted to, but you shouldn't have to mow it a lot.
Is the pathway going to be, what's the material of the pathway? Dirt, stone, gravel?
Right now, I would say stone. What we did, just finished at Howard Acres. We saw the demand because so many people were walking. We just finished that over there with 2.5, 3 inches of asphalt on the walking paths. So it made it so much easier to walk on and low maintenance, actually for the town there too. So if you want to look at that over to Howard Acres, we just finishing that now, and there's a bridge that just get put in for walking area, and that's similar to what we want to do here. Make sure that that open space is walkable and then access to the Lehigh Trail.
With the rest of the Lehigh, it's gonna be interesting. We'll have to figure out because at the south end, at the tunnel, it's obviously a stone dust trail, right? At the north end, it's a sidewalk.
Right. I walk the trail all the time.
Right,
and I
so,
ride my
so
bike on
at
it.
some point, we're
So-
gonna have to carry sidewalk, probably asphalt along the road. And that's predominantly because of snow clearing activity. Stone dust near where street plows are going typically does not fare well. Once we get past that road, and this is the town's portion,
Mhm.
right? So the town's putting in that back, and then at some point, it's gonna depart from there and switch over to again, at some point, obviously, by the time it gets to the tunnel, it's gotta be stone dust. So we're gonna have to figure out where does that transition occur? It's probably a little bit past where it leaves the road. Would be my guess, but
So I agree. You have to look at how far somebody's walking. So that's why we changed it to Howard Acres. It was where people could push strollers yet and have access to it. The stone was not working for that. And maybe, somebody who can't walk as well, the stone doesn't work as well. So I think you kind of blend it higher grade and then you end up where somebody's on lower level stone.
yeah, and that's the biggest issue is for people, if they have wheelchairs, walkers, strollers, anything like that, the stone dust isn't as good. But again, obviously the Lehigh Valley Trail is a stone dust trail for the vast majority of it. So,
So most of that open space in here should have pretty good. We're planning on probably putting asphalt, or if town requires sidewalks, if we get to that point, but we just as soon do something like asphalt.
And you said you were building 2 stories. Are you also planning on doing ranch models or Cape models?
Correct.
First floor masters?
Yeah, that's happening right now in another location, actually changing them to more ranch to
Mhm.
be able to cut costs to get it where people can afford it.
I know ranches, first floor masters are just huge. My other job is realtor, so I totally understand that.
okay, any other questions before we open to public comment? Okay, is there someone interested in speak? Just raise your hand.
If you're looking for virtual people, I have
I will
some folks on deck.
be alternating.
Okay,
The woman in front here, I saw her hand go up first. Just introduce yourself, and you don't have to give us your full address, but maybe just say, what street you live on.
Okay, I am Jean Chaudry and I've lived on Apache Trail for over 30 years. And I'm going to go with the comments I had when I came here. You'll see.
That's fine.
It's very hard to hear anything that anyone says when you're back there. Let me
No
just say. So
problem.
I don't know what's been said, but I'm going to tell you. The environmental quality reviews need to be more transparent. The preliminary subdivision plans on the town's website state that the developer provided a full environmental impact assessment, or EAF, but that EAF is not available on the page dedicated to this project. According to the preliminary subdivision plans, the EAF was provided on August 18th of 2021. The town's determination of significance should be available since more than 20 calendar days have passed. Hopefully, the town has issued a positive declaration, because almost certainly this project will have a significant impact considering the substantial adverse change in traffic levels with the creation of 113 single-family homes, the substantial increase in erosion, the clearing required to build, the removal or destruction of large quantities of vegetation, and the substantial change in the use of land, among other likely impacts from this project. The draft environmental impact statement and the final environmental impact statement need to be posted to the town's website and should be available at the library to allow town residents an opportunity to review and comment on them before the town makes a final decision on this project. In addition to the environmental impacts from this building project, the town should consider the viability of this project in the near and long term. Will families be interested in purchasing homes that are exposed to both EMF from bulk transmission facilities and emissions from throughway traffic? Whether or not the new subdivision will be set back far enough from the transmission lines to minimize exposure, there will be a perception of danger because of the type of EMF emitted from transmission facilities, which have been linked to childhood leukemia. RG&E has agreed to no net increase in gas use. So does that mean that these 113 homes will require electric heating and cooking? Will families be interested in purchasing those homes when the rest of the homes do have gas hookups? The town should carefully weigh this project and see if it will truly benefit the residents. One other thing I thought about, we live so close to that fertilizer thing. In case of an explosion, how will all of us who already live there and 113 new families get out of that neighborhood by 2 very tiny little roads? And they are so narrow. You always worry about authors, but what about the fact that Nevins is so narrow that when you turn, you pray to God you don't hit the car in the other lane? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Don, just for clarity, she mentioned draft and final EIS. That's not required as part of this process unless they get a POS deck, correct?
An environmental assessment form is required to
No,
conduct
the
seeker.
EAF, but she
Yeah, I was gonna
later
make the
then talked
distinct.
about the EIS.
Yeah, so the EAF, environmental assessment form, is distinct from the environmental impact statement. The environmental impact statement would only be required if there was a positive declaration, and there's been no declaration made negative or positive at this point.
Right. Yeah, so the reason you haven't seen a declaration is because we're still gathering input. One of the things we were waiting for, we asked them to update their traffic study based on a bunch of things, and so they had to essentially go back to the drawing board and redo the traffic study. So until that came in, once that was available is when we called this public hearing. So like I said, that's why it's not there. Becky, is the EAF? I thought the EAF was out there. Online under projects. Do you know?
Let me double check.
Okay, we'll keep going and just chime in when you have a chance, so. Okay.
Can I,
Oh, sorry.
Let her go. Let her go.
Yep, go ahead and introduce
Hi.
yourself.
My name is Charlene Freundlich, and I live at 155 Authors. So I'm the house that's on the west side of Authors, the last house. So I'm one of the ones that'll be affected by this building of these homes the most. I'll mention a couple things that I don't know if the board is aware of or not. But back several years ago, we had somebody come in from RG&E and place some kind of a meter in our bedroom to measure EMFs, maybe it was. And it was way over what it should be. At that time, we were told that the edge of our property and possibly the edge of our house, the back edge, was probably over a little bit and shouldn't have been built. But by that time, we had already bought it, so we were up the creek without a paddle. But just for your information, I've had cancer. The woman that lived across the street from me, the other end house, she had cancer, and the woman next door to her died of cancer. So we were always a little concerned, and my husband just died of cancer too. So we've been a little concerned about that. Also, I don't know if this map is entirely correct. There is or was a huge waterfall back in there when they built the golf course. It comes off the hill, and that whole hill area is up in the air. And they were very concerned about our houses being swamped by water, because that land was swamp at one time. And so they put the waterfall in to try and catch some of the water and keep it back away from our houses. The pond that's next to my house supposedly has a drain coming out of the side of it. And that is to release some of the water if the pond gets too high. And it would drain into a drainage ditch that runs alongside my house. The town put in a great big grate to take off the water. It hasn't been cleaned out in 20 years, I would say at least. So it's all filled with leaves and cattails and everything. So I don't know if that's doing any good or not. But the map doesn't show the waterfall. And so I don't know. Anyways, my biggest concern is the water. My house is fairly low. And if that pond breaks or comes over the top, I'm in big trouble and I can't swim.
And you're talking about the existing pond today.
The existing pond that's there, yeah. And it's so covered with weeds and everything around it now that I can't even get up to take a look at it because I'll fall down. But
So one of the things I'll note, and the developers can correct me if I'm wrong, one of the things they are adding is an overflow. So if the pond raises up, it will actually drain to the west, and therefore it will not be able to top.
It won't be able
banks in your direction.
okay, I apologize. I
Oh,
was
that's okay.
I was in a hurry to get here tonight and I didn't want to be late, and I forgot the most important things, my hearing aids.
Oh.
So I've heard about a quarter of whatever was said, but
Sorry about that.
yeah, but I'm just very concerned about that pond, because when we get a lot of water, say like we have a torrential downpour,
Right.
which we've had or something, the backyard starts filling up and it starts coming towards the house, and they're like, no, the other way. And the house behind me is the same thing. And at one point, several years ago, the water came in the wintertime, and we ended up having to have the fire department come down, and they chopped through the ice and made a path out to the road so that the road could take off some of the water. So it does have water problems back in there. But that, that drainage ditch, I don't think anybody even knows it's there.
It's possible. I don't know. I'd have to talk to our drainage folks, but one of the things that we had talked about at a previous hearing was that's what I had mentioned about the drainage on the south end of Waltman and Authors was specifically that there are issues there today, that this would, in other words, whatever they design in the water retention would be designed to help that and help in two manners. One, they'd be collecting more of the water that currently flows in that direction. So there'd be less water coming towards your house. And two, they would have positive systems that would actually pull the water away and ship it out to the west.
Okay, all right.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Nods, yes, okay.
Yeah.
There's that mic right there.
There is no functioning outlet from that
Right.
pond. What's happening is the water in that pond fluctuates and it could fill and it could create some issues. What we'll put in is control. So the water will be kept lower and it will not get to those elevations.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
one of the things I marked down is I'm going to reach out to our liaison at RG&E and ask them to address that concern if they have, I don't know if you guys have talked to them, if they have a particular offset. I realize there's an easement, but is there an offset for the houses?
And we've talked to them about providing service, but this never came up.
Okay. I'll reach out to my liaison and Bruce, and I'll put them in touch with you and BME to basically say, let's look into this. Is there a particular field strength that there should be what I'll call a safe buffer to where no house should be inside of that?
Correct. That sounds good. I think it was brought up a little bit at the planning board meeting, actually.
Really?
Okay.
And where is the waterfall on your map?
I'm not 100% sure. Was that something they were pumping water to or?
So one of the things is you're going to be regrading a lot of this because there were artificial hills put in for the golf course. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So that might be why it's not on there, is
Okay.
because they'd be changing the grade. But again, one of the things that the planning board will make sure is that all the drainage
Yeah.
pulls this away from.
Have they done any
existing houses.
studies as to how, if they change all the dirt up there and everything, how it will come down and affect anybody else?
That is part of the drainage plan. And so basically, what happens is they create a grading plan that has the elevations of the various things. And obviously, if the land is higher towards your house than it is towards the pond, the water is going to flow towards the pond, right?
Yeah.
So that's what they will be adjusting the grading. Again, it's going to be up to the planning board to review that and approve it, but they'll make sure they do this all the time. Unfortunately, to be honest, it wasn't done enough in the past, right? I have our team has over a dozen open drainage issues because this town was flat, has a subsoil that is high clay content, and is basically the floodplain for the Genesee River.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a number of neighborhoods where that positive drainage analysis wasn't done enough in the past. More recently, you're seeing that a lot better. And again, where Howlett Acres was built, there's absolutely a bunch of wetlands around there. And I don't mean just protected wetlands. I mean just literally land that is wet.
Yeah.
And they basically, built the water structures to pull that away and did the grading plan to specifically deal with that. So the houses are up higher, the yards flow away in both directions, and they flow towards, again, these collection ponds. And there is a giant wetland to the west, which is with a lot of capacity, which is, I'm sure, why this is going to the west.
Well, I've been a Henrietta resident my whole life, and I've lived in that house over 40 years. So I'm quite familiar with the property around there when it wasn't houses and
Right.
stuff. So, I just wanted that was my biggest fear, is the water, changing that all around, what it's going to do. So thank you.
Thank you.
Charlene, can I ask one question?
Shelley.
You mentioned this meter. What does it measure? Is this meter that's in your home, is it still working?
I think it was so long ago that my old age doesn't remember, but I think it was EMFs.
So my guess is it was field strength, electromagnetic field strength.
Mhm.
So EMF is electric magnetic field or electromagnetic force.
Right.
So it was probably the strength of the field.
And they
Okay.
told us at that time that, like, let's say, and I don't know the exact amount, but let's say it was safe to build if it was under 3. We were like 4.5.
Gotcha.
So, but they didn't suggest
Right.
anything. So,
So like I said, I'm going to reach out we have a liaison for RG&E. They're very responsive when we reach out to this individual. Her name is Lori Picardo. She does a great job. She'll track down what that is and make sure we find out what that safe distance is.
okay,
So
thank
that-
you.
I very much appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I had one other question for Jean, or at least a comment. She mentioned about only having 2 ways to get out of the development. And I think the developer, Mr. Howlett, looked to get an access road to go to East Henrietta Road at one point. And I don't think anything really came of it. Is that true?
No access point right now for traffic. We are doing a construction entrance there, so we went in the building process. We do not go up and down through there.
But not for
That was
traffic.
one of our requests. So one of the issues is because of the easements through there and who owns the land, getting that permanent access through there was difficult. They worked a deal out with the rugby club that essentially the access road will become their future sideline so that they'll actually have a gravel base and can have, benches, bleachers, that kind of stuff there, which they don't have that capability today. And so, but they weren't interested in having a road going right next to their field, so they weren't.
Okay.
And that didn't even get into the question as to whether the state DOT would have given them an entrance off of East Henrietta Road right there. They also did look at, they had a meeting here in Town Hall with the property to the west, Hosmer. And again, they weren't interested in either a permanent road or a construction road. So they did explore alternatives, and unfortunately there was nothing available. And, we understand the concerns about that, the additional houses. It adds, if I remember my rough calculations, it adds about 30% to the neighborhood. Because there's currently, if I remember, roughly about 300 parcels in that off of those streets. Somewhere just over 300, so it's about 30 to 33%. I don't know if someone's done more accurate counts, but yeah, I did that by basically dragging out secting an area in the GIS county database. So, we understand that. One of the things I will say when this thing was first, your neighborhood was first proposed, it included connecting Authors and Nevins. At that time, it didn't include the parcels that are now part of the golf course. Well, I take that back. There's a couple parcels that were in the golf course. The northern parcel was part of your development, and that included already approved 47 houses. So your neighborhood was always built with the intention of an additional 47 houses. Obviously, this is another 66 houses on top of that because of that additional property, but I just want to make sure everybody understands that. Becky just alerted me that there's a gentleman from the rugby club who is online and had his hand raised and would chime in since we were just talking about the rugby club. So go ahead, Becky, go ahead and enable them. John, I think is his name.
Yep. You guys hear me okay?
We can.
Thank you. Thanks for hearing me. Yeah, so I'm John Beckner with the Rochester Rugby Club. We became aware of this development in the spring and been in conversation with Mr. Howlett and so forth through there. For what it's worth, our club has owned about 15 acres of land along the thruway to East Henrietta Road since 1985. And we've been playing rugby there since 1989. So we've been there for a while. We actually traded some land to the golf course when they were first proposing that. But anyway, just to say that we would actually welcome this development. Currently, we have some issues with occasional four-wheelers and dirt bikes sort of tearing up our land and things, and we think that the neighborhood would help us with that. And we are certainly talking to Mr. Howlett about the access road, which we think will help us. I want to specifically respond to the question about could you make the road, instead of a construction road, a permanent road? We haven't really discussed that. We're not, we'd prefer to keep our land as it is. But if there was a strong need to consider an access road to East Henrietta, it's something that we could talk about. So that's where we are. We do appreciate being part of this process.
Thank you, John. Becky, do we have someone else online who had their hand raised in general?
I'm very happy that you asked, because I got a lot of stuff coming in here. I would like to start chronologically, if I could, with some chat messages received from Linda Youngman. But I also would just like to remind anybody who's attending virtually that if you would like to speak with the town board directly, feel free to raise your hand. You can hit the raise hand button, or if you're on phone, you can hit *9 to raise your hand. And once it's your turn, we'll unmute you. That being said, Linda Youngman has said, what about the traffic on the main two side streets, Authors Avenue specifically? I'm a quadriplegic in a wheelchair that can't use the sidewalks because of the condition. Authors Ave is almost a raceway now. No one stops at stop signs. There are also many new families with children. Also, Authors Ave has a school on it, and she's emphasized this, so I just feel like I should mention that. She's emphasized that there's too much traffic now, and there's traffic issues on the side streets. She talks about property assessment. She commented as the meeting was going on, so she asked, why can't there be a different entrance other than two side streets, Authors and Nevins? Trails, how about safety? Again, why no other way in and out of there? She commented on the stone for the trails. It's not easy. She's in a wheelchair. Think about handicapped people, accessibility. She's commented that it doesn't matter what neighbors want anymore. It's all politics and money for Henrietta. I'm so disappointed in all of you.
Well,
Now,
let me interrupt you.
okay, sure, sure.
It's not about money. We haven't raised our tax levy 1 penny in 4 years. I don't mean didn't raise our tax rate. We collect the same amount. The budget that we're putting forth tonight would collect the exact same amount as the first budget that it wasn't entirely this board, but at least this portion of the board plus 2 others put forth our first year. So every single budget that I've put forth has had the exact same amount of property tax collection. Because there's been additional growth in the town, the tax rate has come down tremendously. So this is not about money. This is not about politics. This is about someone's proposing to legally develop their land. Okay, people have a property right. As I point out, you would be livid if I said, you know what? In 4 years from now, you have to move out of your house and demolish it and give the land to the town. You can't put a house there. You can't develop, because we'd be taking your property rights away, right? This individual purchases property and wants to develop it, okay? Now, there are zoning laws, there are seeker laws, there are a whole bunch of laws that govern that they have to do it within those confines. They can't put up apartments back here because it's not zoned for that. They can't put commercial business back here because it's not zoned for that. But from the get-go, from when your houses were built, this was zoned residential R115, okay? they have a right to develop it within the confines of those laws, okay? Again, we look at these adverse impacts. And obviously, yeah, anytime you move dirt, we're taking vegetation away, but the same thing happened when all of your houses were built. And the same thing happens with any development. So, you know, we try to balance this stuff. There's some people who have asked, you know, well, how does Pittsford block it? Well, the answer is simple. They collect something like $1 million a year in extra taxes so that they can buy property. To put that in perspective, it would mean your town taxes would go up 25% for us to do the same thing. And I suspect that this property was worth more than $1 million. So we wouldn't have been able to buy this property unless we saved up a bunch. And then you get into the issue, you know, so like I said, it's not, this has nothing to do with politics. This has nothing to do with a money grab for the town. This is about somebody's rights. And we absolutely are listening. You heard we'd already identified previously 6 items that residents brought forth. And they've already adjusted their plans to accommodate some of those, including some speed control on Authors, specifically the tabletop crosswalk at Wallman. We can't, yes, more people are speeding these days than in years past. That happens whether this gets built or not, right? We're talking, in fact, we just had a long discussion yesterday about other things we're trying to do with regards to that. But just because more people are speeding doesn't mean we have the right to take away this individual's rights to develop their land. So I want to get that off the table because it's just so not true. So sorry for my little rant, but as you can, usually when people get frustrated, we hear that same complaint. And again, it is just not true. Okay, sorry. Okay.
Do you want to hear Linda's response?
Sure.
She said, okay, so no politics. How about safety, Steve? Just put a different entrance.
So again, put a different entrance is more easily said than done. They did explore that. The problem is that we can't force these other property owners to sell. There are 2 legal access points that when this neighborhood was developed, it was always intended that those roads were going to connect. That was part of the original plans. We can pull them out and show them to you guys if you ever want to see them. When your houses were built.
Could we get those comments on the microphone?
The question was, I'll just repeat it. How long ago was that? That wasn't 2, 3, 4 years ago. I understand that. What happened intervening? So the original developers never completed that, but it was still an approved plan. That's why those streets just dead end instead of our cul-de-sacs. And then some property developer bought the land to make it part of this golf course, started the golf course. The project that the person behind it, as I understand it, passed away. The partnership kind of fell apart. The stuff has fallen into disrepair, and it's now basically a motocross park. Not legally, but it is.
There was an access road to the golf course plan, right?
So the question was, there was an access road to the golf course planned. When the golf course sold that portion of the property to Hosmer, and he has not willing to have it go through his property. I will also point out that that is a industrial zone, and industrial and residential, we typically do not like to mix that traffic, although again, we were exploring that option. In addition, that particular entrance is a driveway entrance, It is not a road, so again, we would have had to get state approval. Or more accurately, the developers would have had to get state approval in order to put that road in. So like I said, I understand it. Trust me, we facing the same thing on Brooks Road as developers want to try to build additional stuff on it. Our road is narrower than most other roads in town and has no sidewalks, no shoulders, no gutters, nothing. And oh, by the way, it's super hilly. So I understand it. Again, we're trying to address as best we can, identify these things from a safety standpoint. But it's got to be within the confines of the laws. Okay, Becky, I've got some people in the audience here. I'm going to do a couple here, then I'm going to come back to the virtual. So the gentleman in the blue up front.
How you doing?
Good.
I think Authors Avenue shouldn't be a dead issue. I mean, if they wanted to renegotiate on East Henrietta Road, the rugby thing, I think we should sit down to the planning board and say, hey, we need a road. With the school kids and the buses and stuff, that's a dangerous situation. I don't care what anybody says, but I live right across the street from them. Believe me, I know. Someday some kid's gonna get run over and get killed out there. And we got like a water problem. We got a thing run right behind the school. It's a trench. It's been there for years. And when they cut all the trees down to make another parking lot, half the trees are laying in the ditch. It's blocked right off. You can't see the water run down it anymore. I mean, ducks and everything used to swim down it. They can't even swim down anymore. We got a trail behind the school that women and their dogs all walk at night with flashlights. And the blacktop, it used to be blacktop nice, so there's not even blacktop anymore. It's got holes in it and everything else. I mean, we got some problems. I don't like to complain, but
What was your name, sir?
we got to do something about authors. I know
Did
that.
you introduce yourself, by the way?
Pardon me?
What was your name?
Yourself?
Bob Lansky. Authors Avenue, 43.
So again, those issues over there are irrespective of this, but I will bring them to the attention of our crews. This is the first I've heard about
Yeah.
that the trees were cut down before I ever took office.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
I wasn't aware that there were trees blocking that creek. We'll take a look at
They've
that.
got weeds and cattails and trees laying in them, and the water don't even run down it anymore. There's a bridge down the road from it on the path.
Very familiar
and,
with the bridge.
It used to go down to Lehigh Station underneath the bridge on Lehigh. It doesn't do that anymore.
What doesn't go there?
Huh?
What doesn't go there?
The water,
Oh,
when it rains, sometimes the parking lot in the schoolyard floods. I mean, it's got to be cleaned
if
out.
you're talking about the new parking lot, that new parking lot was put in an area that always previously flooded. My kids went to Sherman, so I'm very familiar with it. And that, I remember the one spring thing, they were out there in that area and it was soupy to begin with. So to be honest, when you look at things like floodways and things like that, parking lots are allowed there because if they flood, they drain off. But
Well,
but we'll definitely.
That's not the one that's causing the flood. The flood is because everything's plugged up in there.
So I was just about to say, so we will take a look at the trees in the creek and to see if something needs to be done there. We'll take a look at that creek. I will note that the DEC has changed a lot of its regulations in terms of disturbing creeks. They don't like to see the bottoms dredged out and disturbed. So some of the clearing that people were used to many, many years ago, it can't happen anymore. So with that said, obviously from a drainage standpoint, we can make sure that the drainage is still flowing and we'll take a look at that. I'll also ask the parks folks to take a look at the blacktop in the greenway.
The parking
Or
lots are
greenbelt.
fine. It's just that everything's plugged up and it's got to be drenched.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You
Thank
too.
you.
Becky, someone online?
Yes, I'd like to go, still in order here. The next comments we received, questions from Melissa and Craig Barber. I just want to make sure that we get those covered. First one is, are there going to be any speed bumps on Authors or Nevins?
So the answer was there was going to be one on Authors. Not exactly a speed bump. I referred to it as a tabletop crosswalk. If you've ever been on the RIT campus, they have a bunch of them. They're over at Nazareth. I've seen them in a bunch of places. It's basically the sidewalk is elevated and there's a ramp coming to it. The crosswalk, excuse me. And so basically the advantage of those is that if you go over them at moderate speed, they don't hurt your car. But they do provide speed control, because if you hit them at high speed, you're going to bottom out. So that's what we've been looking at. There has been some discussion in the highway department about I'll refer to them as the removable speed bumps, similar to what I think it's Elk Crossing and somewhere over in the preserve. That's not the right one. It's Elk River. No, I can't remember the name of the street. No, it's off. Anyway. But there are some over in the preserve. And so we're going to take a look at that. One of the reasons we typically don't like to put in conventional speed bumps is not long after they're installed, all the local residents are asking us to remove them. They are, let me finish, please. They're expensive to install and they're expensive to remove. As far as the plows, for the tabletop crosswalks, they actually work very well. Again, those have been being used in a lot of places. You're starting to see them adopt more. In terms of the rubber installed ones, the plow has to basically lift. So there would be signs indicating that there's a speed bump there. But again, that we have not made that decision. And some of that's going to be based off of traffic analysis. And then one of the things we've been doing for any of these types of things, so we've also just recently tried another type of speed control. What we do is we circulate a petition to all the people who live nearby. And if there isn't I'll call it a super majority of people who are interested in it, then we don't do it. But we've been trying a couple different methods that are cost effective because like I said, the speed bumps are not, the asphalt speed bumps just typically don't work well, nor do the ones that I'll call them speed dips. All of those seem to have problems with people's cars that they're problematic even if you go over them slowly. So, and then, like I said, what typically happens is where they're located, the people then want them removed. So the advantage of the rubber ones is they don't need to modify the pavement. They essentially get glued and nailed down, for lack of a better way to describe it. And so they can also be pulled back up. If it turns out that they're, for lack of a better way to put it, more problems than they're worth. So that's why we're looking at those kinds of things. That would be on that's something the highway department is looking at. And, we're talking about potentially implementing it in a number of locations, including we would look at Nevins. Okay. Other questions, Becky?
Oh, yeah, I was hoping I could wrap up the questions from Melissa and Craig Barber. They did respond, I believe, to your comments there on their first question. They would like to request more and some on Nevins because the traffic is just going to revert to Nevins if only one street has them.
Understood.
But going back to their other question, it was, has the traffic study been completed? What does the traffic study consist of?
Developers, could you answer what's in your traffic study?
Yeah, the traffic study actually analyzed 4 intersections It was Lehigh Road intersection with Middle Road, with Nevins Road, with Authors, and with East Henrietta Road. So these were analyzed, and the results were provided for review.
You want to talk about trip generations, how you determined, as well as, I know one of the questions that always comes up is, we're not seeing full traffic today, so how can you use today's traffic for background? Could you touch on those?
So there were some changes made to what were the counts. Basically, because of the school, first the peak hours were extended, right? They are from 7 to 9 hours, and it was extended to 7 to 10 to account for the elementary school. Then it was added 12 to 1 p.m. And also the afternoon were extended actually from 2 o'clock to 6 o'clock. Usually 4 to 6 is the normal. So there is a guidance from New York State DOT, which the consultant followed, and they had to adjust basically the counts they got because of the COVID using pre-COVID numbers done by SRF Associates in 2019. So they were able to use those numbers to increase the traffic counts for the trip generation. I think it was by about 20%.
Thank you. So as he was mentioning, there had been a previous traffic study done in 2019, just prior to the pandemic. So that's the numbers that they used instead of current numbers, because again, we all know that although it's starting to come back, traffic was certainly well down in the pandemic. So, and then there is a particular growth rate, which we've seen in town. So those numbers are adjusted based on that growth. And then you also project out some number of years as well, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, he said that's correct for the record. And so they look at all that, and as I said, they're making the petition to New York State DOT to put in a light at Authors. We've been asking for that for some time. And their argument is there isn't enough traffic to warrant a light. It's possible that the traffic from this will change that decision from the New York State DOT, but we will see. Unfortunately, the New York State DOT makes their decisions often seemingly independent of towns and residents and people who drive that street. And I get frustrated with them, to be perfectly blunt. Okay, was that all from that individual online?
That was everything from them, yes.
I'm gonna go back. We have a lady in teal, I guess.
Jennifer Berenger, Authors Avenue, near the end, so very close to the dead end. What I always assumed was a forever dead end, just as if in the back of our yard, we've always appreciated the quietness of the forever wild, so it was an assumption. I was never aware, we were never aware buying the property that there was ever any tension. So I did appreciate the process you explained, Steve, in the beginning, how this all works and the thoughtfulness going into this. But what I'm not hearing is really an appreciation about the impact. So you said this was an opportunity to look ecologically, environmentally, how this will impact our community. So our community right now is quiet. It's peaceful. We chose to stay for 30 years in where we're at because of that peace and because of that quiet. It's a challenge already just with the current number of houses just to get out to Lehigh, but that's a trade-off for living at what now is a quiet neighborhood. Going beyond what apparently was the original plan of, what did you say, 50 houses or 40 houses?
47.
Yeah, so
If I remember
now
correctly.
talking about a 30% expansion on the existing housing there, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out what's going to happen with the traffic pattern. in front of the school. I mean, I can't even imagine. It's already difficult, but again, it's something we've accepted over the years. I still say we, my husband passed away a couple years ago, also from cancer, like Charlene's. But I can't imagine the impact now with 30% more houses on our tiny little roads. Despite putting in gutters or sidewalks or whatever we're talking about, it's just going to be a huge influx. And I did hear the gentleman really clearly from the rugby club, and thank you, John, I think it was John, for not only talking about how they allowed construction access, but they would not be opposed to further consideration and discussion about making that an access road. Because I don't have an issue with the layout of the plan, were it somewhere else. Somewhere that could handle the capacity, somewhere that it would allow those houses access egress out to the larger roads that could handle that kind of capacity. So it's not about the plan, it's about the really poor way that those houses will now have to access through our current quiet neighborhoods, making it something very different than what we have now. So I would really, really appreciate relooking at access. And
So can I ask you a question?
please.
So let's say they get that access.
Mhm.
That wouldn't be able to be the only access. They would need to have a second access.
Even that would help. I mean, it wouldn't be perfect. It would be nice. It would be.
We would start an authors versus Nevins war, I'm afraid, but we'll definitely. Have
Oh,
them
you
take a look
see,
at it.
you see one or the other.
Right.
But, or third, something, something, I would like it to go this
Right.
way. Get little authors and Nevins, if that's even a possibility, and duke it out with Hosmers. But it sounds like the rugby club is interested in
Right.
further conversation, something to relieve what we already know is going to be an impact on the traffic, especially during school times.
You're welcome to have all of the neighborhood go over and talk to Hosmer and see if you can convince him to change his mind.
Well, let's take up the rugby club in the
Well, I'm
meantime
just
for
saying that
their
would
offer.
potentially alleviate the need of both. One of the things I will say is the thing that we'll have to take a look at is, as you get into some of the stuff in terms of the issue, some of you start to get into is the infrastructure cost to the, I don't know how that's handled, Don, in terms of New York. We'll talk about it later in terms of
Infrastructure
they're-
to who though? To the town, not certainly to the town, to the
to
developers?
the there's some things that, the way some towns try to get around the laws that don't, in other words, because again, you're not necessarily to turn it down, they'll place huge undue burdens on the developer
Mhm.
to the point where it becomes cost prohibitive, and that typically gets struck down in court. So I just don't know. I'm just cautioning
Mhm.
that we'll have to take a look at that in terms of, because the difference, either way, both these entrances, they've got about a 300-foot gap. When you build roads that have no houses on them, it's all cost and no return, right? Whereas all the roads in here have return on them. And so, like I said, we'll have to take a look at, there might be a way for them to do that. I'm just letting you know, there are rules about that.
Mhm.
And again, the last thing I'll say about that too is, even if the rugby club says okay,
Mhm.
if the New York State DOT says no, then it can't go out that way. But we'll definitely
But we can
have
explore.
them take a look at whether they can do that
Yeah.
and if there's a way to make that work. But like I said, I just want you to know, even if the rugby club says, yeah, we're happy to do that,
Mhm.
it doesn't necessarily mean it can happen.
But it's worth an
Oh,
exploration.
it's absolutely worth
To
looking into.
relieve what we know is going to be the pressure on Author and Nevins both.
Yep.
Yeah. it's gonna
No,
be
absolutely
huge.
take a look at it.
It's going to be huge. And even the sidewalk issue, we
The
haven't
sidewalk
minded
issue, I'm sorry.
coming down. So the sidewalk issue stops it. I should know this by now. I walk it how many times?
It's
But the sidewalk stops, of course, and it doesn't reach the last few houses, which
correct.
no issue now when it's a dead end. But now I assume putting in the sidewalk is going to encroach further in on our properties. I'm not sure what the footage
It's
is
technically
there.
not encroaching on your property. It would be within the right of way. You don't own that land.
Yeah, well, it's size-wise, I guess, to have. a
I
size.
understand.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah,
again,
yeah.
it happened to me when I used to live on Bailey Road.
Yeah.
I not only did they add a sidewalk, they added a right turn lane. So
Huh.
I lost. Now, again, it wasn't my property to begin with.
Yeah.
It was in this case, county road. It was a county DOT
Yeah.
who owned that land, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
It feels like it's your land
It
because you're
feels
the
like
one who
it.
mows it.
Been
Yeah, I mow the
maintaining it the
stupid
whole
thing.
time.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
I understand.
So that part I
completely,
get, but please, if we could work on the egress, the egress to take the pressure off the two roads that can't handle.
Well, I'm going to make them work on it, but yes.
Exactly, exactly. Not you, them.
Right.
Thanks,
Okay, thank you
Jennifer.
very much.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Back online, Becky?
I'd like to first interject, not to cut the line, but we got a clarification from John at the Rochester Rugby Club.
Oh.
He says that Rugby Club is welcome to be used as construction entrance. We prefer not to be a permanent entrance, at least from what we know now. We're willing to learn and discuss more.
Okay.
So,
Oh, sorry, go ahead and talk.
so that's it. That's all. That was my recollection of what he had said as well, but I didn't have a strong enough to interject, so I'm glad he did. Thank you. Do you have someone online?
I sure do. I have Tony Miranda here with a hand raised. Give me just a second. There we go.
Hello.
Hello.
All right. Everybody can hear me good?
You can.
All right. All right. I have this is from me and my wife. I kind of wrote everything down, so I'll just read the whole thing and then you guys can do your thing, talk afterwards if you want. We expressed our concerns at the first planning board public hearing, and some of this stuff you're going to hear, you've already discussed, but I just want to read this whole thing. But since that was some time ago, we decided it may be beneficial to share them again. We will start by saying that we have no problem with the development in general. Let the landowner use their land for what they choose. We only ask that certain issues be considered for the safety of the existing residents prior to the development going in. First, we think it would be best if there was an alternate access road, which you guys just talked about, I know, into the new subdivision to help reduce the amount of increased traffic traveling down Nevins Road and Authors Avenue, especially Nevins Road, because when school hits, Nevins Road is going to be, when schools open and that development is there and all built, Nevins Road is going to be just absolute chaos because nobody's going to want to travel down Authors Avenue when the school is in the morning time for when they go to work or wherever they're going. If that is not a possibility, maybe add some rumble strips or speed bumps along Nevins Road and Authors Avenue to help reduce the speed at which cars will travel down the roads. We currently have people that speed down these roads, and if you extend the road, that will just get worse. The Henrietta Highway Department was just paving roads off of Nevins Road, and they can attest to the fact that people drive ridiculously fast. Many families walk the neighborhood. People will run down Nevins Road to access the Lehigh Valley Trail. So anything that can be done to help increase the safety for residents traveling this road would be greatly appreciated. On that note, we would request that sidewalks be installed on Nevins Road, which we talked about as well already, and continued on Authors Avenue to provide a safer place for families and residents walking the neighborhood. It was mentioned at the planning board public hearing that a survey of Nevins Road would be done to see the interest, and we haven't seen that come out yet, but we would hands down vote yes for that addition. The last comment we have isn't something that will increase safety, but we feel it would be a nice benefit to the residents that are there now and the new ones this development would bring. We would love for the developer to encourage Greenlight to come into the new subdivision and be encouraged to run down Nevins Road and Authors Avenue in order to access the new development. That would add a benefit, and it seems to make sense to go in while work is already being done anyways. Thank you for your consideration and for hearing the residents' concerns. We know the town is already encouraging a lot of this, and we just wanted to share that these concerns still exist, and we appreciate the work being done to help protect the rights of the developer, but also to protect the residents already in the area. That was it.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
And thank your wonderful wife. She works at the town. She's one of the great deputy town clerks. So in terms of the reason there hasn't been a survey is basically just in talking to all the people at the stuff, it seems overwhelming that people want the sidewalks. We just tonight got an affirmative answer that they have committed to that mitigation. And so one of the things that we would start to do is for the affected property owners, our engineering department would essentially, well, actually, I guess they'd be putting the plans together, right? Not you guys. Or would it be you? I don't know. Chris, if you could come to the microphone.
Again, Chris Martin, Director of Engineering and Planning. Certainly, we could do the design work for that or get the survey work done for that, or that's something that the applicant's engineer could do. It's something that we'll have to work out between both parties.
Yeah, so it seems to me it would make sense that they would do the initial draft and you guys would do a review.
Yeah, we would always review anything that they would give to us to
Right.
review, whether it's for the sidewalks or the subdivision itself. We do a very thorough review.
Right. And so then obviously that would be shared with everybody in the area, but especially with the property owners who, again, it's not technically going on their property, but I get it. You're losing some of your lawn that was currently in the part of the right of way. So.
Yeah, and what I would also say, Mr. Supervisor, due to the amount of properties that would impact, that we may even have like a charrette or a public meeting for the residents to come in that are affected by the sidewalk so they can see what's going on.
That makes a lot of sense. I think that's a great idea.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martin.
Somebody back in the room. Gentleman in the green.
Thank you. Sean Nolan. I live on the corner of Agar and Authors. Most of the points I had have already been discussed, so there's no sense of being at the access road. The platform that you were discussing, I think that's a good idea. That'll help in front of the school. A couple other things we might be able to look at is making this a speed zone, a school zone, so fines are doubled. My neighbors and myself have called sheriffs quite often. They'll come sit up on Agar and they hit them as they come by or they roll through that stop sign that's there constantly.
Do you think there'd be a advantage of a second, and I wouldn't put this burden on them, but maybe we take a look at it? Would there be a location for a good second of those tables? So in other words, one to the south of the school and maybe one to the north?
For the platform?
Yeah, for the.
Definitely, because a lot of the kids are walking home from school and that, this and that. Neighbors are out walking their dogs in the evening. Like I've almost gotten hit 3 or 4 times. They're not looking.
Right.
They just rip right down the road and they're not paying attention to the stop sign and, they think it's dark out, so there's nobody out.
Would you think like Ravens and Hayden, that area?
Yeah, that would probably be helpful. I know there's kids that live on both those streets there.
Okay, anything else?
One of the things I came to a couple of meetings when the golf course was going in, and I knew that they kept getting shut down for clearing when they only had fill permits. And a lot of the neighborhoods in the back were complaining about getting covered with dust, dirt, debris. And when I first moved in there, we couldn't hear the throughway, but they cut down a lot of trees. Is there anything in the plans for sound barrier once this is completed along the throughway? Because now with the windows open, like in the summertime, I hear the throughway all day long.
So I'll have them address that. One of the things I will say, and he'll probably get a smile from this, I get developers calling me all the time, talking about, how tough our deputy town supervisor is on these guys who they don't do the proper silt fence, they don't do the proper, and I see Bruce smiling as well, can attest to the fact that Craig does a really good job of staying on top of these guys, including shutting them down if they're not following the rules, to help address that, because we understand, we certainly don't want to see, when the soil is disturbed and there's rain, if it's not properly contained and silt and that type of stuff, you can get runoff. If it's going to sit for any amount of time, they have to do stabilization. So like I said, that has been something that we have addressed in the last couple of years, specifically when I brought Craig on to be deputy town supervisor. He's had a lot of experience in that area, and I've kind of put him in charge of that. And I can tell you, he is not well liked in the developer community. I should be careful with that. For the people who like to, we'll say, skirt the rules. So, so we will address that. But I would like the developers to talk about the sound barrier.
So a couple things. He's absolutely right. Henrietta does a great job overseeing these sites for erosion. And if you don't, because you're removing tremendous amount of soil, it's the only way you can build the houses. One of the things that I've talked to Ryan Holmes about is we already have a bunch of open space. So that's not gonna get moved. And then a lot of the houses are way up top, and we're gonna try and move as little dirt as you can, versus sometimes like a Ryan Holmes will come in and they move everything and they put it in a big pile, then they start over, and we're getting away from that because it's moving too much dirt. It's not always easiest for the engineers to design it, but it's also a large cost in a project is the earthwork, and the dust is there. But I will say that I hear it out in the communities of the contractors that Henrietta is the toughest on this. So you're actually lucky to have Craig on as your person overseeing it.
And could you address the noise?
So the noise, right now, the plan is more of a tree type situation than actually a sound barrier. The footage there's a lot of footage there to cover, and you are correct. There's a chunk of trees on the one end that's left that may help, but there's a long section there that it was all taken out. So we're also looking at a dirt boundary to try to do that too.
Like a
If we
berm.
had extra, some type of berm, if we had extra dirt to build up to try to do that, then put trees, pine trees, something like that on top of it.
So you're looking at putting like mature trees in there, or you're looking at growing trees where it's gonna take 10 years before
Yeah.
this is existent?
Good question. I just bought some for another place, exactly that, and people that were buying houses right now were complaining about it. They were to a back of another highway, and we're putting 12-foot trees in there. So typically you buy 6-foot pines, and we're actually going the extra expense and going 12. And if they grow, they'll grow pretty fast. That's about as big as you can go realistically.
Right. Has there been a wildlife study done back there?
I don't know if I would call a full-fledged wildlife study, but that is definitely, taken a look at in terms of resource mapper as part of the EAF. That is something we will be taking. Is there something specific here?
No, like I'd noticed, like I said, when we first moved in there was, I don't want to say abundant of deer, but there's blue heron, there's deer. I actually think I heard some coyotes this summer. And it's been years since they were there, since before the golf course that they were there. So it sounds like with the construction stop, they started migrating back to that area. And now with construction kicking in again, and I know that I don't know if they're completed, that subdivision kitty corner of Sherman, like behind Sherman to the right.
Oh, Winter Garden?
Yes, Winter Garden.
The first phase is done, the second phase is not.
So you've got construction not going over there as well.
There's no construction right
Oh,
now. The person who was developing it passed away. And so the second phase is up in the air right now.
Sounds like a bad time to be a developer.
Apparently. If you missed that comment, Becky, sounds like it's a bad time to be a developer. I thought it was funny. So like I said, it's there's no question as you get into some of the stuff, anytime you develop, you're displacing wildlife.
Right.
One of the things, there's at least a green path. Now, some of it's because most of it's actually due to the power lines. But then, again, it's west of here, although one of the things that you run into, again, a bit further west is a deep wetland bog kind of. So I don't know how much of, certainly the birds, and especially any water birds, but I suspect deer and coyotes don't cross that because it is it is wet. But
let's see, I had one other note on here. Oh, for the light, I don't know if I mentioned that when I started. When you talk to the state DEC, is there a way for them? Like, could they meet if they weren't for it with the volume of traffic? Is there a way to meet them halfway as far as they put one in and it's a flashing light during the day and during school out? Like, the main issue
I
is the
see what
school
you're saying.
buses.
Right, right.
So
No,
during
that'd be
school
an
hours.
interesting idea is that if they're not willing. So again, as I mentioned, I live on Brooks Road, right? We have a light at the end of our street. There's less traffic there than what comes out of Authors.
Right.
Now granted, we're going on to West Henrietta Road, which is even busier. But some of it had to do with historically that used to be a hotel there. And so there used to be more traffic. The way, if it is a censored light like we have, this is the part that frustrates me with the New York State DOT. If they put that same light in Authors, it would work great. It would basically stay green on Lehigh Station Road unless somebody comes up to the light. It would change. And if there was nobody else on the sensor, it would immediately change back. So this idea that it's somehow going to cause problems, I don't get. But I like your idea that if they can't, maybe it's, I don't want to start there because I don't want them to immediately jump on that. But if they're going to say no, I like that idea that we say, well, what about a light that, you know, goes to flashing at night? Now, one of the things I will say is I want to check to see who's on the corner, because having a flashing light right in your front yard, or right, especially if it's outside your bedroom windows, that's not always the nicest thing, but it's certainly an idea to take a look at. I like that idea. Thank you.
And the last thing on the egress road, one of the other points, I didn't hear anything brought up. I don't want to beat it to death.
No problem.
But for emergency vehicles getting in and out, especially during school hours, they're not going to be able to get up or down Authors. You got school buses in the road, you got parents' cars in the road. It's hard to get one lane of traffic through there. And, you know, God forbid an emergency vehicle has to get through there, an ambulance or a fire truck. So they're going to have to reroute and go down Nevins every time. That was it.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Sean.
Becky, online?
Yes, I have some questions from James Youngman here. And James, if I miss anything, please type something in here to let me know. First is about assessment changes. Well, the effect on existing homes and their assessments. So assessment changes for existing homes due to the effect of this project.
I'm not qualified to answer that. If the fear is that it will tank property values, I do know from the assessors, the brief thing that they had mentioned about this, the last time that question came up, they said that is not consistent. If anything, it'll make your homes more valuable, is what they had said. Lisa, I don't know, from a real estate standpoint, if you can add anything to
I
that?
agree with you. If you're putting homes back in there that are 250 to 300, it's going to improve your property values.
Are you ready for the next question?
Absolutely.
This is also from James Youngman. What about additional 300 to 500 motor vehicles on Authors and Nevins? It's already a drag strip with IndyCar S curves.
So, I mean, obviously, in terms of the roads, we understand that. That's something we're going to take a look at. But again, I don't know that we can, for instance, or even you'd want to widen or straighten that road in some way. I don't even know that that's necessarily an option. I don't know that there's an option for an alternate route. I understand that concern. I don't know what else to say about that. I will say that the 300 extra cars, I don't know if that bears with statistics. Basically, the traffic studies are done. Could you cite the name of the group? It's Institute for Transportation Engineers. They have basically, they've collected just boatloads of data and aggregated it. And they can tell you, depending on a whole bunch of different things in terms of, is it family homes? Is it senior homes? Is it that they basically can tell you how many trips per day that typically generates, including, during peak hours versus off peak hours, that type of stuff. So that is all in the traffic study. In terms of at the peak hours, do you know how much traffic is expected to be generated down each?
I can look at.
Okay, well, you can look at that. We'll keep going, and when you're ready, just let me know and we'll come back to that. Did you have other questions, Becky?
Yes. How long before some kid on Authors and Nevins gets killed with the additional traffic? Minimal new up to code sidewalks would be minimum to alleviate that chance for the entirety of both roads. That's more of a comment than a question.
Sure.
They've asked me to tell you that the house on the corner of Authors has 20-foot high pines surrounding the entire property.
Yeah, that's the house with the, I always point to that house. It's the green giant arborvitae that if you go to Google Earth and you go up north Authors, the image is 7 years older than the image off of Lehigh. So you can actually see how much those trees have grown in 7 years. It's astounding. So we've told a number of people that if you've got, the other thing is because there are deer in that area, at least in this region or that particular area, they seem to have survived deer pretty well. So thank you for reminding me of that.
Yeah, I have the everbodies that were planted, that were planted behind my home after they were destroyed at one point. And they've grown, they were probably 6 foot at the time and they're over the power lines.
Right.
And that was in.
So
6 years.
that's some other, possibilities to take a look at, Bruce, is, in terms of some to create a green barrier quickly, that those are an option to consider. Anything else, Becky?
That's everything from James Youngman. While I have the floor, I neglected to reply to your question earlier that I said I was going to, and I have a note here and I just kept ignoring it. The seeker information is not currently on the projects page, but we'll get that fixed tomorrow.
Okay, apologize. I thought it was up there. We'll get that fixed. Did you get the answer from the traffic study?
Yes. For the weekday morning peak, exiting 63 vehicles.
Is that from your development or at the intersection?
From our development.
Okay. So 63 vehicles onto which road?
Just exiting out, so it's not.
Oh, you don't have the split to Authors versus Nevins?
I could go through probably fine, but it's 63 exiting. And on weekday evening peak, 72 coming back.
And so you say, well, how can there be more coming back? Because not everybody leaves during the morning peak.
Yeah.
One of the things in most traffic studies, they look at the peak traffic, because if the road can handle the peak traffic, it can obviously handle the off-peak traffic. That's just so. I certainly wasn't at all used to reading traffic studies when I first took this office, so I don't expect anybody outside of folks who work with this a bunch to fully understand those. But that's basically what they look at. They look at the, the profile, and again, it's based off of years and years and years worth of statistics. And they basically then take a look at the splits, and then when they get to the intersections, they'll actually typically study the actual intersection, actual turns. So if 40% of the people exit to the east and 60% to the west, they'll apply those same numbers. And they then cascade that traffic down to the next major intersection, which again, to the east is the East Henrietta intersection, and to the west was Middle Road, correct, is what you guys?
Yeah.
Yeah. So because it's not just the two local intersections, but that's a bunch of additional traffic that then potentially piles up at those two intersections as well. So that's why we ask them to look out there. Once you get through there, it's typically, in other words, those, because they're controlled intersections, they tend to be I'll call it a gating factor. My point being, they can only let so many cars go through each light cycle. So if it's more than that can push through on a light cycle, then you will start to see back up there, and what'll happen is those intersections, they'll degrade, they'll go down a letter grade. Was there any degradation at either East Henrietta or Middle?
No, it was just on Authors Avenue.
Authors has that right.
Yeah.
So anyone who's done been through that East Henrietta intersection, especially in the morning, if you're coming northbound, I don't think you can get much worse than what it is today. But again, this traffic won't change that because it wouldn't change the length of the cycle. I will say that and this is why I bring up that thing about New York State DOT, if they brought this traffic out to East Henrietta Road, a bunch of that traffic would be going north, and the worst performing leg of that intersection from what I've seen is the northbound East Henrietta lane. So I suspect they would much rather see the traffic coming on Lehigh than they would on East Henrietta, but that's just my guess. I don't know, but like I said, that's why I brought up the point about even if they can get the rugby club to agree to it, it still may not happen because of New York State DOT. Okay, do we have somebody? Yep, gentleman in the blue t-shirt.
I'll introduce myself. My name is Gary Hahn. I live on Nevins Road. I've heard a lot of comments from residents concerning Authors, and I understand that with a school being there. I went to Sherman myself many years, well, maybe not too many years ago. And I just, the common theme here, or what we hear very frequently, is traffic, 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 traffic. And if I say it again, it's because it is a big concern for everybody. I live on Nevins Road. I see the traffic. I see the Amazon trucks up and down the road all the time, parked on the side. There's really isn't enough room for two cars to pass without both cars slowing down and actually riding into the gutters. So I don't know about sidewalks. There's no street lights. A lot of people like to walk their dogs. I see couples walking. I see individuals walking for exercise. And the cars are incredible. The amount of cars are incredible.
So just to make clear, I can't speak for the rest of the board, but I know for myself, there's no way I would, in other words, I would issue a pause deck if there weren't the commitment for sidewalks on Nevins Road. Because I absolutely agree with you. The fact that people are walking in the street, that I think that's bad today. And if we had a much larger sidewalk budget, it might have already been fixed. Unfortunately, we don't have a large sidewalk budget. We don't have a large budget, period. But, I absolutely agree with you with regards to the sidewalk issue. One thing I will note is narrower streets are a common traffic calming measure. They refer to them as road diet. So they take roads that are currently 22 feet and they make them narrower, and people do slow down.
Hasn't worked there.
Well,
make them narrower then.
Yeah.
Forget the sidewalks, make the streets half this.
Right. It's, like I said.
If you've lived there or if you've even witnessed it, I don't know if you've ever even been down there and witnessed it. Your traffic study you said was from 2019?
No,
it's recent.
The background data is from 2019.
Okay.
That's how they had figured out what the.
But that's the
pre-pandemic
data they used
volumes.
was from 2019, you said.
To determine the pre-pandemic volumes, they've also looked at from speed records. I assume you got speed, current speed, right?
Yeah. The study, actually, the field work was done in June.
So,
of this year.
During segmented portions of the day, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, well, I don't know if that's a true reflection because I live there and I see it. So I understand peak versus non-peak, but I also see it visibly constantly.
do you think the speed bumps would help?
I hate speed bumps myself because obviously you have to slow down, but I'm more concerned about damage to my vehicle.
Right.
So, and that really depends on the type of speed bump as well. Some are more forgiving and they are effective though. And I'm not opposed to having them. I just don't, like anybody else, don't like to have to go over them.
Right. Let me, I'm gonna find the actual street in case anybody wants to check them out and provide feedback to me. Oak Mills Crossing. Oak Mills Crossing, it's, so again, if you take Bailey Road, cross East River onto Chesapeake Landing and turn left onto Oak Mills Crossing, you'll come across some of these rubber strip. They're a combination of rubber and plastic speed bumps that were installed there. Again, for a tabletop one, I would go onto the RIT campus. The easiest one to get to is Perkins Drive. So if you go down John Street and turn left near where all the apartments are, that's there's one of those. There's a bunch of them on campus, but that's the easy one to find the tabletop. Like I said, as a person who hates speed bumps, and I have a low riding car, I don't mind the tabletop ones. And even the rubber ones, I will say they're not as tall as the ones that typically put in with asphalt. Because that's, and they are angled instead of this. I find the ones that are curved, what happens is it just seems like a sudden jolt to your suspension. I've never been a fan of the, you know, the typical asphalt ones you see painted yellow.
Right.
So, okay.
But I also want to say, you know, we've talked about people walking their dogs and couples walking. There are kids on bicycles and there are kids that are playing in the streets or kicking their balls from the yards into the streets. I understand the school part of it and authors and everything should be done there for the safety of the kids and for the amount of traffic that is going to be, it will be subjected to with the additional vehicles. I don't want to see that diversion of traffic move towards Nevins Road, because that's exactly what it's going to do. If people don't want to bother with going down Authors because of speed bumps, flashing lights, stoplights, whatever it might be, Nevins just gets the whole influx of traffic flow.
So a traffic light might actually arguably encourage people to go if at least depending on what the time of day is, because if it's hard to make a left turn out onto Lehigh Station Road, there might be people who would prefer to turn at the light. I suspect it's going to be, there are probably just as many who want the light as who don't want the light. So I don't know that it'll change a whole lot, but I understand your point about if all the speed bumps are on Authors, that potentially pushes everyone to Nevins. The one thing I will note with Nevins is Nevins empties more of the current neighborhood than does Authors, just because the side streets off of Authors are shorter than the side streets off of Nevins. So if I do a house count, looking at that big green belt down the middle, more of the houses have access through Nevins. Now, granted, they can all loop around through Wallman, but I'm just talking about going due north. So I get your point. And we can take a look at, like I said, if we're gonna take a look at putting speed bumps in, the town putting in some additional speed bumps down there, we can balance that by putting one on Nevins. What we'll have to figure out is where does it make sense to put it? Because unfortunately, Nevins has those strange, what are they called? I call them warts. Knuckles, thank you. So, you know, maybe at Buckley might make sense just because there's, you know, at Prentice and Bemis, there's there's those knuckles. Same with that Wallman. you can't have it opposite knuckles or everybody's gonna fly over the knuckles to avoid the speed bumps, so. But we'll take a look at that.
All right. The only thing, a lot of the intelligent and concerned people have voiced a lot of different things tonight that I had several of those things on my list as well. The only thing I didn't hear about was we have a criminal element that comes into a lot of neighborhoods, but especially down into our area as well. Police have not been very successful in apprehending anybody because smart criminals don't walk up to security cameras and smile at them. Okay, so they continually get away with this thing. So the additional houses, I think, will also invite more criminals into the neighborhood.
So I will say that again, we had a long discussion last night. We're gonna have continued discussions about efforts. What can we do as a town government to try to help with that? Because I agree, larceny and robbery seem to be on the rise. You know, is there something that we can do to help both catch the people who are doing it and or to, you know, minimize the likelihood that people are doing it? So we are taking a look at that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Becky, anyone online?
Yes, I have a FAQ received from anonymous attendee. I believe we lost them somewhere along the way, but I'd still like to read their question. In regards to the green space, has RG&E been included in the planning process? They do come through every year and clear out around the towers.
I will say within that easement, that it's their easement. So they would have to get permission from RG&E to put their roads through there. So the developers are nodding their heads that yes, they've been working with RG&E in that regards.
They are they, or are they going to work with RG? Has RG&E been contacted? I saw you nod your head. I wasn't sure what you meant by that.
Yes, the RG&E, they were contacted. They are fine with mostly perpendicular road crossing and with stormwater management ponds in their easement.
Okay, thank you, because she asked one question. You said.
They had mentioned earlier that
Thank you.
yeah, sorry.
Thank you.
They had mentioned, remember, they had said that they had talked to RG&E about a bunch of stuff, but they had not talked about the EMF. So,
Thanks.
okay. Is that it, Becky, or you got more?
I do have another, well, I have a couple things, but I do have another Q&A from Melissa and Craig Barber. They're asking, why do they need 2 access roads? What about Finnegan Way?
I don't know where Finnegan Way is.
Well, I did pull it up on my computer just in case you asked that question. I'm so happy. All right.
Oh, we did look at Finnegan Way. No, not Finnegan, sorry. Finnegan Way doesn't get there. We did look at Night Frost. And again, the problem, what's that? Yeah, some of what you run into, there are wetlands over there. There are other property owners over there. But we did take a look at that. From Finnegan, there really isn't a good way to get over there. But we did look at Night Frost. And the answer to why 2 is that's required by law for safety measures, for exactly what someone talked about earlier. If one of the roads is blocked, there needs to be a second access for emergency vehicles. There's a threshold. I don't remember, 20 some odd homes, maybe 30. No, it's not 40 because
it's 30.
30, thank you. So the most I'll call it a single road can have on it now, and obviously there's some older ones that violate this rule, but it's 30 homes. Anything over that, they need to have a secondary access. It could be a crash gate, which means that it's not normally open to traffic, but you have a gate that emergency vehicles can get through. But anyway. Anyone in the room? Looks like we're back online to you, Becky. What, you got any others?
Yes, I did receive a comment here from Grace C. They say if the tabletop crosswalk is installed at Authors and Wallman, where exactly would it be placed? The current crosswalk is on the southern side, I believe, which does not serve to slow traffic that speeds off Authors and turns right to Wallman. An added comment, I don't think the connection of Authors and Nevins is a major concern. It's more an issue of the effects of building 113 or 114 homes, which is a significant increase from the original 47.
Understood. To answer the question, we have to do more study. Again, that gets into the planning board, not the town board. We don't have the same experience that they do. And that's led by the Department of Engineering and Planning, not by the supervisor's office. So, but that is something they would take a look at, whether it makes sense to have it at its current location on the south side, or whether it makes sense to have it at the north side of the intersection. That's something that they would determine. I'm sure our superintendent of highways would be involved in that, probably the deputy town supervisor, since he has some experience in that as well. But basically, we have a Tuesday engineering team that they meet and talk about these types of issues. So if this were to move forward, they would absolutely take a look at that before that decision was made. Same with any of these improvements, you know, in terms of where they would go, where they, you know, how they would go in, that type of stuff. That would all be planned and approved and have to be on paper on the site plan before they could ever get final site plan approval, again, assuming it moves forward that far. So anything else online, Becky?
Yes, I have a hand raised by Wallman resident. Let me unmute them.
Hello?
Hello.
Yeah, I have a question about the green space. Is that going to be green belt right up to the back of the homes, or is that shaded green area at the back of the homes going to stay grown in for a sound buffer and so you can't see through to the new homes?
So I guess the question is, are you disturbing any of the vegetation under the power lines?
No, if you look at the map, right in the back of the homes, you see that shaded green. Like, I'm wondering if that's going to be left grown in like it is now. So it's like a buffer between that and the trails and all that. Or is it going to be green belt right up to the back of the houses?
You're talking about the existing houses.
Yes, you
Yeah,
see the green?
I was just asking the developers that question because that's inside, right? That's all inside the easement or no?
Correct.
Well,
It'll probably say is existing. We'll remove as little as we can in that area if it's already existing.
So did you hear that response?
Yeah, partially. So in other words, that shaded green area on the map, that's right at the backyards of them houses, that's going to be stayed all up to the power wires. It's going to stay all grown in.
And that goes back to why we asked them to relocate that one trail, is so that they wouldn't have to disturb, well, for two reasons. One, so you don't have people walking past the edge of your property, but two, it also means they would not have to disturb that. So again, what he had said was in that area, they are not planning to disturb. Again, there might be a little bit, what you're seeing is that shaded green. It's not actually shaded green. It's, you're seeing the green, this plan was overlaid on top of an aerial imagery. And so that shading is actually from underneath. That's the current foliage that's there. So again, they would disturb that as minimally as possible, which also goes back to why I was asking if this northwest pond could be rotated, you know, maybe rotate it 90 degrees and take that green infrastructure and put it on the other side or something, but just some means to, again, minimize the disturbance close to the existing houses.
All right. Well, the reason I ask is because I bought my home here before the golf course was even built, and you couldn't even hear the throughway. And then when they built the golf course and knocked everything down, you could hear the throughway at night, you know. So the more that's left grown in, the better it is for sound.
Bruce, in this open space, right in the drawing where it says open space in some of that area, could there be also rows of trees put in there?
You know, definitely, that would be good. The paths go through, then you would have vegetation. That's what we did at Howard Acres. We put vegetation on each side of a trail, pine trees, arborvitaes, whatever you want, and it would help that. Correct.
And that way they'd have essentially two sound barriers, one between their existing houses and the new houses, which also then provides additional sound buffering to the throughway, so.
So basically between the power wires and the back of the houses, that's going to be left untouched, right?
So again, there'll be a couple areas, if they're gonna fix some of those drainage issues in terms, there'll be, but the large areas, the ones off of Wallman, I just look at the northeast pond, they might, just again, you can talk to this if you've got some different, Bruce, but as I look at it, I could see that there might be some disturbance there. But to the properties, to the vegetation that's immediately south of the properties on Wallman, I see no reason why they would need to disturb that.
All right.
Yeah, there is no disturbance proposed. Along that pond, we'll have to fix the berm, right? But I don't see that many, trees or shrubs growing.
So again, and we'll record that note to the planning board, but Chris, you hear it now. Let's work on that pond. Obviously the existing pond's already there, but this new pond that it's put in such a way so as to try to not disturb any of the existing vegetation on the northern side of the 300-foot power line easement. And again, that gets back to, as we've talked about before, that we would reroute that path so it went kind of along the northern boundary of parcel 113, so it came nowhere near the existing vegetation. Does that work?
That'll work. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't going to be green belt right up to the back of the houses.
No, and just so you know, green belt doesn't always necessarily mean grass mowed. Green belt just means it's not parkland. You know what I'm saying? It's not active parkland. It's just basically, it will have a conservation easement. It can't be ever developed. It can't be, it's to be kept open and not necessarily wild. Again, I don't know. RG&E maintains a lot of that, so that's essentially their call. But obviously, if that's all existing vegetation, then they don't have an issue with it. Those towers are so tall, I find it hard to believe those trees can reach them. So.
All right. Well, all that field between the power wires and the back of the houses really deadens the sound.
Right. Sounds good.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so I guess I would say, Bruce, for your, these trails and stuff like that, let's try to keep them all out of the easement.
Great.
Anybody in room? Anybody online?
Yes, I have a question here from anonymous attendee. They have asked, does the cluster plan meet an open space requirement if the majority of the open space is the easement for the power lines? How usable is this space? Wouldn't a conventional plan mean less homes, less traffic, less issues?
No, so first off, they're not doing the open space incentive program. That's only available in the rural residential. That's not available here. When you do the conventional plan, they can't put anything in that easement. And so it's that conventional plan that determined, they basically drew up a conventional plan that had 113 units. That's how you get to 113 in the cluster. The clustering plan under New York State Town Law 278 does not let you add additional houses. You basically, it just lets you, for lack of a better way to put it, once you've put the 113 houses down, it lets you cluster them together. Any land that, for lack of a better way to put it, when I cluster them and I've squeezed out that additional land has to be marked for conservation so that it can't subsequently be developed. No one could then say, oh, well, there's a big empty parcel here, let me put a house there. Well, then I'd be up to 114 and I would be in violation of the law. So that's why it basically has to be marked as what most people refer to as forever wild. It's not the correct term, but it's what people think of. Does that make sense? Or was this the anonymous user who might have left?
That was from anonymous attendee. It came in after the previous thing, so I think they're still with us. Obviously, if you have any other questions, just feel free to put that in the Q&A.
So
Are you
Becky,
ready?
you
Oh,
can
sorry.
keep going. You can keep going. I'll interrupt you if somebody here raises their hand, but it sounds like most people in the house who wanted to ask a question has asked a question. So just
Okay.
go in. Let's.
Can you still hear me?
I can.
Someone told me these are Section 8 houses.
You want to address that?
What now?
Low income housing, low income.
It's not Section 8.
No.
Okay, just curious.
Yeah, that for some reason, I heard that from 3 different
Yeah, I've
people
heard
in
it
that
from
community, that they were
multiple
told they were
sources.
low income, and I said, nobody can afford to do low income right now.
Lower level price range, but not low.
But even
income.
lower level price range is more than what they're selling for in the neighborhood right now. so-
What are they selling for?
Right.
What it,
250 to 3 is what you said, correct?
Correct, 250 to 3.
That's their target price.
These double car garages or single car? Or
2-car garage.
Okay, 2-story houses?
And there'll be some ranch and mostly 2-story though.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, I have one last comment to read. If you are online and I missed your comment or misconstrued what you meant and you want to clarify, this is your chance. This is the last comment I have is from Melissa and Craig Barber. They say there are many roads in Henrietta that do not have 2 exits that have more than 30 homes. For example, Florendon and Green Clover, just to mention a few.
That the law changed only a handful of years ago. It wasn't too long ago. So that the way they typically do those things, the old ones are grandfathered in. New developments have to meet the new rules.
I haven't seen anything else come in. That might be it from the virtual audience.
We've got one individual. No, come on up. They can't hear you. Sorry. We have to have that for our records.
Oh, that's right. You need me to introduce myself again?
Just say your name and go.
Sean Nolan. For the developer, ideally, what's the time frame you're looking at completing this?
Three phases. So more like 40 to 50 homes to begin with, and then the balance over 2 other years.
So it's 2 phases, but the first phase is a 1-year phase. Phase 2 is a 2-year phase.
The reason is the marketing, when you first start off, you're gonna have more houses in the beginning, and then to build, not necessarily they sell them any faster, but then you have the balance to build.
Right. So 3 years start, ideal.
That's, yep, correct.
Okay, thank you.
Is Nevins Road getting paved?
I'd have to get back to you on that one. If you want to send me an email at supervisor@henrietta.org with that question, I can get you the answer. Unless it's distinctly possible our superintendent of highways is on. It might be, I don't know whether he would know that off the top of his head, but if I remember correctly, I think it was planned for next year, but don't quote me on that.
Yeah, because they just got done paving Wallman and all the side streets off of Nevins.
Part of it, I think, is if they're gonna be doing this sidewalk, you want the sidewalk to go in first. Because it's gonna be behind the gutter. If there's any gutter repair work that has to be done, and then you would pave the road. So that's my recollection, but I could be remembering that wrong. Tim, if you happen to be on and wish to chime in, please do.
Tim Lessing, Highway Superintendent. I am on. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, was he talking about Nevins or authors or both?
He was specifically asking with regards to Nevins.
Yeah, that one's in worse shape than authors, and I did want to do it this year, but we had to hold off to see what was going to happen with the construction road coming in off of East Henrietta Road. Now that we have access over there, then I could have went ahead and paved that, but I had to wait and see what it boiled down to. And I didn't want construction traffic on Nevins or authors if I was going to pave it.
So your plan would be to pave it next year then?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
When is the house project starting?
Some of that obviously depends on whether they get a positive or negative declaration. But if all went well, what were you thinking, Bruce?
Correct. If all goes well, earthwork would start when conditions are correct in the spring to start earthwork movement.
Yeah, so some of that depends on, is it a wet spring? Is it a dry spring?
March, April, depending on how dry it is.
Is there going to be fishing allowed in the ponds like there is now?
We do what?
Fishing.
Correct. Yes. Hopefully, yes.
All right, because a lot of times you see they put up signs, no fishing once they build houses.
Those ones are in that open parkland, and I don't see why it wouldn't be allowed, although we'd want to have people throw them back in because I suspect it couldn't sustain a good population if people were harvesting many fish from there. But if it's recreational, sport fishing, whatever, just to, catch and release, I see no reason why that couldn't continue. There's other town ponds and lakes where we absolutely allow fishing. So
Yeah,
again,
a lot of people fish in that big pond.
right. Yep. So that would still all be surrounded by, well, RG&E land and or town land, or the majority of the ponds. Obviously, you couldn't fish from someone's backyard.
No.
Right. So
What about that on the other side of the thruway where the other part of the golf course was? Someone told me that you guys are gonna donate that to make that into the motocross track or dirt track.
we haven't figured out what we're going to do with that. We don't know whether we're going to do that. I mean, for that to happen, there's a huge, the liability issue, the noise issue. If we were going to go down that route, I would probably plant trees first, let them grow and mature to provide good sound barriers before we ever did something. I don't know what's going to happen with that. But again, that's irrespective of this particular project. Like I said, it was just one idea, because one of the things we did work with the sheriff's, Monroe County Sheriff's Office. We did catch some of the people who were riding so dirt bikes or four-wheelers on Lehigh Valley Trail. Two of the individuals we caught were basically good kids, but they were like, we have nowhere to ride. That's why we ride there. And unfortunately, the only way to get there today is by the Lehigh Valley Trail.
Right.
So I'm relaying essentially what was said in court. So that was something we considered. If we thought it could reduce the amount of Illegal riding elsewhere is why I would consider it. But I would also take a look at what can we do to contain the noise, especially to the southeast, to the people who live off of Martensia. You know, one of the things we also talked about, if it were donated to us, is some portion of it, we'd look at what's called a pump track or a BMX track, which is pedal power. So, you know, maybe you'd hear people grunt, but obviously a lot less noise than you know, motocross. But that is absolutely something we've talked about. But again, I don't know whether that will ever happen. That's way down the road. I just like to let people know what we're thinking so that it's not suddenly a surprise, but I don't want people to get fearful either. So it's kind of a balancing act.
Well, as you know, a lot of people ride back here now, so they're all losing that, you know?
Yep. And one of the things, if we did do that, we've already negotiated with the Freemasons of New York, who are developing the property on the northeast corner of Erie Station and Middle Road. They're putting in a senior living community there. The very northern portion up near the highway, we negotiated that basically off of where our pump station is, we would have a road to go back to this property. Now, we want that no matter what we're going to use it for. So if, let's say we turn it into a park, or, you know, it's a way to get to that portion without having to go down the Lehigh Valley Trail. So if it were to be motocross, they could get there, you know, they could throw their dirt bike or their four-wheeler in the back of a pickup or on a trailer, go there and get right to the thing without going down the trail. Or like I said, if it was a bicycle track, or if it was a hiking area, whatever we decided to do with it, if it's ever donated to us, that's what we would look to do. So, but again, that's far off down the road, and there would be public discussion before we did anything in that as well. It too would have to go through seeker.
Right.
Anything else?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I understand you guys got to build the houses back here, but I mean, it's beautiful back here. You know, I walk back to where that big waterfall used to be and stand up there on the top of that and look down at the ponds. It's pretty nice back here right now. It's a shame.
Yeah,
gotta be honest with you.
It's a shame that golf course fell through.
I know. I was planning on playing golf there. I remember the first day they started it up for VIPs and they lit up the waterfalls. And I thought it was gonna, you know, make the property values go up and everything. And the old man died and then it bellied up.
Yep. The nice thing about golf courses, they preserve a lot of open space. They do have the issue of taking down trees from a noise standpoint, but in terms of open fields, they definitely preserve a lot of open space. So
Well, I know. Like I said, I couldn't even hear the thruway before they built that golf course. You couldn't even hear it. Once they knocked all that down and built the golf course, you could hear the trucks, and they put on their, I don't know how those people are that buy these houses are gonna handle them Jake brakes on them trucks when they come down that hill to the exit.
I will say all the houses on Farrell Road Extension, which are right up just as close as here, and the roads off of Farrell Road Extension, those have all sold. All the houses on the north side, can't remember the name of the street, but on the north side of Riverton, right up against the thruway, they've all sold. Mertensia.
Yeah, but that's not coming down that hill. I listen to it every night. They come down the hill, down to the exit here, and they put on the Jake brake, and you hear brrrr all the way down the hill.
Again, my house backs up to the thruway, and we're near a hill too. So I get it. People do buy them.
Are you putting up a concrete barrier along the thruway in the houses?
The issue is the state, because we've talked to that about the state. They don't put those in very often.
They were talking about a natural barrier, some kind of
Right,
trees
so,
and some
right,
kind
so the developer is gonna put in a natural barrier. Those concrete barriers are typically on the state right of way, and it's the Thruway Authority that puts them in. And they are very reluctant to put them in. We know because we've asked them to do it on behalf of residents in other areas, and we got a flat out no. So,
Well, I wish them luck because I know them trucks, they wake me up at night and I'm on Walman when they come down that throughway hill with the heavy load on, they put the Jake brake on all the way down that hill. It's loud at night, even on Walman.
okay, thank you.
All right.
Anybody
Thank you.
else in the house? Anybody else online? Well, thank you very much for all your participation. We've got a lot of good points. We'll be working some of this up. If you've noticed, it's not on the agenda for tonight because we have to digest all this feedback and essentially work it up into a statement. Again, Bruce, if you could open up dialogue with the rugby just to see if it is at all a possibility. Although, like I said, I suspect the bigger hurdle will be the state DOT. And we'll follow up. I'll follow up with RG&E and we'll get with the Chris Martin and his team to go over and put this stuff together so that because a lot of this is essentially requests to the planning board to address these things as part of the site plan. So again, we'll take a look at and go through all the stuff and try to make a determination. And I will tell you, it's not easy. But as far as whether we believe all of the issues have been successfully mitigated or not. Depending on how long it takes for some of these outside agencies to get back at us, it could be next town board meeting, although I suspect it's more likely that it'll be the first meeting in November, being perfectly honest. I just don't know that we'll be able to get to it all in 2 weeks. So again, thank you for coming. Thank you for being patient. I'm gonna, unless there's any other comments, I'm gonna close the public hearing and then I'm gonna suggest we take a little bit of a bio break before continuing with the rest of the agenda. I know I need a break. Okay. Okay, hearing no objections, the public hearing for the proposed Lehigh Ridge subdivision is hereby closed. Thank you again for everybody who participated.
Thank you. Thank
And
you,
Becky,
Sean.
you can put up
Thank
your
you.
little sign. We'll be back on momentarily.
Thank you, everyone.
I'd say 5-10 minute breaks.
Thank all you
Thank you.
for staying so late. Have a good night.
We haven't even stayed as late as we did yesterday, and that meeting started at 4:30. Yesterday's meeting went 4.5 hours, so.
More to go.
These guys are road warriors. When you look at their stipend, I think they make about 13 cents an hour.
Probably more than I make it. It's probably more than I make it real estate, so I mean, amount of hours I work for that is
We have to worry about it.
By the way, was I correct that you were smiling at your reputation? Yes. I figured he was proud of that. Okay. I did. We are going to resume. We have one last public hearing. It's for the proposed local law to amend the Henrietta Town Code at Chapter 245 regarding cluster subdivisions. So as I was just explaining to Councilman Stafford, this used to be in the section on open space incentives. That chapter covered almost all open space incentives except for this one sentence. In this town law 278, it says that the town may pass a local ordinance or town code that basically says that it's the town who approves open space plans. So, what's going to become town property. As I said, for us to take property, that has to be a town board action. And so whether it's going to be town park, whether it's going to be easements, agricultural easements, open space easements, that's always been done by the town board. Well, when that section's missing, it reverts to the state law, which says may. And the issue, again, this town board's always done it. So we're not taking any authority away from the planning board. We're not giving them any additional authority. We're just putting back what was always there. It was just for lack of a better way to put it, a clerical error on Don and my parts. We missed when we moved all this stuff over to the new incentive zoning portion. We had intended to move that one sentence over to Chapter 245 and we just missed it. So
So
that's
you're
all.
going from may, they will.
Correct.
Gotcha.
And again, that's the way it always was in Henrietta. We just want to put it back. Otherwise, what happens in terms of in some of the stuff, you run into issues in terms of then are we involved? From the get-go, it just cleans everything up. Because again, we have always done it. We just want to make sure the code says what our practice is, like it used to before we put in incentive zoning. Any questions online? So hearing none, unless you guys have any additional questions on this, I'm going to close the public hearing. Hearing none, I'm closing the public hearing for the proposed local law to amend the Henrietta Town Code at Chapter 245 regarding cluster subdivisions. That completes our public hearings. Can I get my first resolution?
Supervisor Schultz and fellow board members, I have resolution 21-277, 2021 to authorize bills payable for September 29th, 2021 through today, October 13th, 2021.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor, fellow town board members, I have resolution 21-278, 2021 to call for a public hearing on the fiscal year 2022 preliminary budget.
Seconded.
You'll notice one of the things we've got there's the second be it further resolved paragraph in the case you guys had any modifications, although we kind of went over everything yesterday. But just in case, we left that paragraph in for now and noted that there are no current modifications. So it includes the items we talked about. But as we said, they're included in the budget. That is not authorization to actually enact those programs. Those will be done by separate resolution if we decide to enact them. If we decide not to enact them, the funds would just roll back into the fund balance, which is where they would be if we hadn't included them in the budget anyway. So the we did make sure that the budget is okay with the numbers that we were talking at the union negotiations today, so
Fantastic.
that will work. And then we also, the one that came up yesterday that I didn't realize hadn't made it in, we did add in. So we had for one full-time and one part-time code enforcement in the budget. We upped it to 2 full-time. That doesn't mean we're gonna, again, that's gonna be a separate decision. But if we decide to go to 2 full-time instead of 1 full-time and 1 half-time, we will have that ability to do so under the budget. So that's all in there, and we're still end up in the 19 to 25% fund balance range. After everything's in there. As you'll notice, the fund or the budget's actually a little bit less than last year's. Although I think that's largely because we had a couple large projects in last year's budget. The large projects are not as large this year.
So those couple of minor changes, is that in this current?
That is in this current budget. Yep.
Great, thank you.
I just wanted to let you know what changed from yesterday. You know, again, at this morning's union contract discussions, were very, very close on getting that done. And so we just wanted to make sure that the 2022 budget reflected the numbers we were discussing with the unions with regards to pay rates. So, so we made sure of that. She put those numbers basically in her calculations for the budget. Linda's created this great spreadsheet that she just puts those numbers in and it calculates the budget. And then basically, like I said, we made those that minor change with regards to the potential to go to 2 full-time code enforcement, because we had talked about that at yesterday's meeting, and I didn't realize it had gotten removed. That gives us the ability to put it back if we decide to do it. So
great.
Anything else? Hearing none. Well, anything online? Becky, are there still attendance or is it just staff now?
We have 1 attendee still on.
Okay, so I'm probably not always going to ask for attendee, but at any time, feel free to interrupt me. And since you're the one who has to call the roll, it makes it easy for you to get a chance to break. So, but for speed's sake, I'm probably not always going to ask. Anyways, hearing no further comment, please call the roll.
It also gives me an opportunity to ask for clarification.
Sure.
On this resolution, since there are not any modifications from the town board, is this for this final be it further resolved paragraph, I don't know what to call it. Is it going to end after public review period? Right now it says, for public review, comma, with the following.
Okay, so why don't I do this? I make a motion that we amend the current resolution to end in the last paragraph after public review.
Second.
Any further discussions? Hearing none, please call the roll for the amendment.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Now, any further comments? Hearing none, please call the roll on the amended resolution.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
I'm sorry, Supervisor Schultz and fellow board members, I have resolution number 21-279, 2021 to authorize the supervisor to sign a letter of intent with Centrica Business Solutions, Inc. for an investment grade audit.
Second. Sorry.
Right, no, that's fine. I just want to point out again, as Don said, so we did add that this is upon acceptance by the town attorney. Don just wants to make clear, if they do the audit and it comes back that it's not going to be cash neutral and we decide not to do it, we will owe up to $35,000. Again, if we move forward with it, that kind of just gets eaten by them as part of the whole contract. So we are on the line. If we approve this, we are on the line for a minimum of $35,000.
And I know this is just for the study, but I want to make sure that when the work is being done, that it's done by local labor.
Okay.
Which, I mean, we could probably use what the county, what is it, the six surrounding counties
Sure.
or whatever. 6 surrounding counties, I believe it is. So.
Yep, we'll remember to bring that up in discussions once we're done with the audit. Okay, any further comment? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford.
Aye.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye, and thank you, Craig and Don, for all the work you put in on
Yes.
getting this done.
Thank you.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have resolution 21-280, 2021 to authorize the purchase of materials for the facilities building.
Second. So, as mentioned, like I said, the aggregate price was under 30,000. It was 27.5, which is a lot lower than it had been previously, almost 10K less. So, I guess in a good way, we were helped by the, although to be honest, I don't know what the price is. The quote we were originally working off was July. We would have gotten an update when we first went out anyway. So I don't know. It's possible it's come down even more over the time it took to do the bid, but any other questions on that?
I'm good.
Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford.
Aye.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Fellow board members, I have resolution 21-281, 2021 to amend approval from resolution 20-269, 2021, authorizing the purchase of engineered wood fiber to correct the vendor name to Fibar Group LLC.
Second.
So as you can see, we just had the wrong name, so. Any questions on that? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz, I have resolution 21-828, 2021 to authorize the supervisors to sign the agreement with myrec.com recreation software.
Did you say
He did.
828?
What?
You dyslexified.
You
What'd I
said
say?
828 instead
Instead
of
of
282.
282.
Let me repeat that then. Supervisor Schultz, I have resolution 21-282, 2021 to authorize the supervisor to sign an agreement with myrec.com recreation software.
I'll second that one.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Go ahead.
Just think that, everything I've heard about from the rec center over the
Right.
years, that this is something needed.
Yeah, they've been wanting this.
Is this gonna help with the online registration
It
process?
is the
Oh,
online,
it is the
yes, it's
online reg-
replacing
okay.
the old one that's been buggy at best.
828.
If it's
Wow.
worked, it's worked poorly.
It only works for my husband's email, so I can't register my
It's-
son for anything. He has to do it all.
Yep. Any further comments? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor, fellow town board members, I have resolution 21-283, 2021 to authorize the advertisement of bids for tree removal, trimming, and stump grinding.
Seconded.
Any question or discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz and fellow board members, I have resolution number 21-284, 2021 to authorize the repairs of the 2010 Mack dump truck by Beam Mack Sales and Services Rochester.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have resolution 21-285, 2021 to authorize the renewal of Spectrum Internet Service Provider Agreement.
Second, I'll note, we talk about a month-to-month agreement. It's not exactly that. It's a 12-month agreement, but if we terminate early, our charge is 0. So it's effectively month-to-month, but it's technically a 12-month agreement. He'd originally told us month-to-month. We put that in, and just before the meeting, Andrew got an update saying, oh, I misspoke. But they put in for the charge that we have to pay if we terminate early is 0. So we said, okay, that's fine. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Fellow board members, I have resolution 21-286, 2021 to make appropriate budget transfers per the 2021 adopted budget.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz and fellow board members, I have resolution 21-287, 2021 to authorize the town to apply the excess unassigned fund balance for calendar year 2020 to the 2022 proposed town budget to offset the tax burden per the town's fund balance policy.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor, fellow town board members, I have resolution 21-288, 2021 to approve the Recreation Center 2022 wage scale, part-time and seasonal employees.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz and fellow board members, I have resolution number 21-289, 2021. Whereas 1 in 8 women will develop breast cancer in their lifetime, including over 300,000 new cases each year, and sadly, over 49,000 deaths each year. And whereas when detected at a localized stage before it has spread to other tissues, the 5-year survival rate is over 99%, adding to the over 3.8 million breast cancer survivors living in the United States. And whereas scheduled screenings have been down due to the pandemic, leading experts to worry that some cases are going undetected in the early localized stages, potentially leading to more dangerous conditions later on. And whereas October is National Breast Cancer Awareness Month, an annual campaign to help raise awareness of the importance of screening and catching this disease in its early phases. Therefore, be it resolved that the Henrietta Town Board hereby decrees that October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month in Henrietta, in support of all of the breast cancer patients and breast cancer survivors and victims, as well as to encourage women to not let their scheduled screening slip due to the pandemic.
Second.
Any discussion?
I just think it's a great thing that we're doing this. I have 3 sisters. I have 3 granddaughters. I just think it's really important that we do this.
So one of the things we'll do is we'll follow this up with something on our website. Even more to the point to the social media. To try to get the word out. We'll post it to Henrietta, highlights, stuff like that.
Well, we all know someone that's been affected by breast cancer. So it is a great thing, and early prevention is always a smart way to go.
I know many women, a lot of teachers and people that work, students too, where I'm at, that are facing this issue right now. So I do appreciate bringing awareness to the town of Henrietta.
Any further discussion?
Just want to say get those screenings because I think so many people have let them slip
Yep.
last year. So
Hearing nothing further, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have resolution 21-290, 2021 to hire personnel and make the attached changes.
Second. Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Fellow board members, I have resolution 21-291, 2021 to adopt local law number 13 of 2021 to amend the Henrietta Town Code at chapter 245 regarding cluster subdivisions.
Second.
Any discussion?
Just added it, just added a minute ago there.
Right, that's what I figured, but just in case there was something new. Hearing nothing further, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz and fellow board members, I'm pleased to say I have the last resolution of the evening. Resolution 21-292, 2021 to call for a public hearing for proposed local law to establish community choice aggregation program.
Second.
Any discussion?
Is this to appoint, what was the phrase?
No. So it's not to appoint the administrator. That will be a subsequent one.
Okay.
Before we can appoint administrator, we have to have the community choice aggregation is one of those, what I referred to as an opt-in.
Mhm.
So this is officially opting into the program. Don is working on, he took the template and he's making it specific to Henrietta. He'll have it done on or before a week from today at 5 p.m. And then basically it's going to have at 6 p.m. No, that's the public hearing.
I do see there's a typo here in the resolution. I'm sorry. It looks like the last be it further resolved has September 20th, but obviously it means October 20th.
It does. As the one typing that, I apologize for that typo. It was probably a cut and paste error because I was using the last one we had just done. So I will make a motion that we amend this resolution that the last be it further resolved is on or before October 20th, 2021 at 5 p.m.
Second.
Any discussion on the proposed amendment? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Okay, so continuing with the discussion, again, basically we'll have the new local law. This will have what we have to then do. Will guide essentially us through well, let me rephrase it. This will provide the legal framework from which we would be doing community choice aggregation. The next step would then be interviewing and or selecting a administrator.
Okay.
Again, the Sustainability Committee has been doing a bunch of interviews. So at some point, probably at the next workshop, we'll have them on to go through it. We'll take a look at to do the actual, if they can provide all the information, I'll have them get that out on what they've found to you guys, maybe early next week. That'll give you time to review it. And then at the following week of that, at the workshop, we can then go over it. If we agree with their selection, we can have a resolution to select them. Or if we prefer to go out to bid, we can go out to bid. Any other questions on that? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. That concludes our resolutions. There is a note for an attorney-client session. However, I'm going to do what we typically do with executive sessions and hold that after the meeting. In fact, we can actually adjourn. We don't have to be in session. Is that correct? Yeah. So we'll hold that after the meeting.
Yes.
Okay, any additional discussion items from the board or the public?
From the board, I'd like to say thanks to the supervisor and Linda for allowing me to attend the union negotiations today. I thought the meeting went very well. Did a great job.
Thank you.
Yep.
Committee or miscellaneous reports.
Okay, Parks and Recreation. We got the construction going on at Breeze Park play pads. They started installing them, so the trails are still open over there, but please stay away from the construction areas. The acoustic spray foam in 2 out of the 3 rooms at the rec center has been completed. They all should be completed all 3 should be done by the end of the week. Some events coming up. Registration is still open for the Halloween celebration at Tinker Park. That's this Saturday, the 16th. Preschool friendly hours are 4 to 6, and the traditional event is 6:30 to 8:30. All activities will be held outdoors. Make a Difference Day is Saturday, October 23rd. This year's project focuses on themes. Thank our emergency care workers. Volunteers are needed to rake lawns for senior citizens. For more information, get involved, call the rec center, 359-2540.
And Mike, can I interject a second?
Yep.
I would just like to ask the rec that we ought to take a look. I don't know if this is a national date that picks this Make a Difference Day. But one of the things I noted is that I believe it's after the deadline for when students who are trying to get service hours for their National Honor Society accreditation has passed. So we might want to reach out to the school next year to find out what that deadline and have Make a Difference week prior to that, so that students who are looking for last minute volunteer hours can get some through that program. So
Steve?
Yep.
So yes, that is a national day. It's selected as the 4th Saturday. But that doesn't mean that certain projects couldn't be completed ahead of time and still count towards that if they had an idea of their own.
Yeah. So, well, like,
Rake leaves.
yeah, I would just say that, so certainly for we might want to arrange, for instance, the raking for the seniors. I think would be a good one that we could potentially, and it's only.
Yeah. You get the leaves have to be on the ground to do that one.
That's a good point. Dang it.
Yeah.
I don't know, but we ought to take a look at something, because again, I didn't think of it till there was someone approaching me about volunteer, and I said, oh, it's perfect. In 2 weeks, we've got this. And she said, well, that's like the day past the deadline, which I never even thought of, but it was after she said that, I'm like, oh, I figured it was a national thing. I don't know if there's a way the national folks ought to be paying attention to the.
Well, There are multiple reasons why high school students might need to get service hours.
Right.
So my son, for the National Honor Society, always did Make a Difference Day because they have multiple times throughout the year
Right.
when they need to collect hours. So he would just continue to contribute the hours towards the next time.
Right, so that's good for your son who plans things ahead. My son, wait till the last minute. And I know I'm not the only parent with kids who procrastinate, so.
I'll join Steve on that.
Right, so.
I was gonna say, I had the pleasure of working with a lovely young woman at the 5K race where we were at one of the places shouting out times and she was getting hours for that.
Right.
And it was nice meeting her. She was a very impressive young woman,
Yeah,
so.
I know Anita did a great job helping the
Oh, absolutely.
National Honor Society kids collect hours.
Well, and especially last year with all the food link distributions, we had a lot of participation there. So I know they're very good about that. I was like I said, if there's some way we can lobby the Nationals to move it up, I don't know. It just seems frustrating that it misses by, a couple days. Anyway, sorry, Mike, didn't mean to derail
Okay.
your talk.
Saturday, October 30th, there's going to be a blood drive at the rec center. You can register, and that's from 9 till 2, and you can register online at redcrossblood.org. A reminder that the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Love Overcomes scholarships applications are due by November 1st, 2021.
So let me interject there. I strongly encourage seniors or parents of seniors to apply for that. It's a good program. I know we could use some applicants. So.
And if someone's looking to donate, we can use donations also.
Yep.
At the senior center on Wednesday, October 22nd, or I'm sorry, on Wednesday, I'll start over. At the senior center on Wednesday, October 27th. Ann Mitchell Jazz Trio will be performing there from 12:30 PM to 2. And if you want to register for this free event, you can call 334-4030. And then finally, the senior center is collecting items to donate to the Veteran Outreach Center. And those items they need are personal hygiene items, hats, gloves, and other gently used clothes. And that's all I have.
Your arm sore?
Was that?
Your arm sore?
I just have one thing for the library. They're doing a bewitching evening, a Cackle book release party with Rachel Harrison. She's actually a Henrietta resident. That's going to be this Friday at 6 PM. You can pre-order a book and you can register online.
What was her name? Rachel?
Rachel Harrison.
Okay, thanks.
It's a scary book. I don't like scary books. But she's a Henrietta resident, so I'm going anyways.
Any others?
No, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you to our interpreters for sticking it out to the bitter end. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Seconded.
Are we motioning to adjourn?
No,
to-
we are adjourning attorney-client
To-
privilege. We do not need to be in session.
Okay, so do we need to also cover, are we going to talk about the
Oh, you want to talk about
contract?
the contract? Yeah, we can add that in.
Then we would be adjourning to executive session.
Okay.
Is there any issue adding it this late in the schedule? That wasn't on the contract. Okay. Okay. So it sounds like there is a motion to, from Councilmember Safranek to adjourn to executive session, from which point we would just adjourn the meeting. So we would thus end the broadcast now. Can I get a second?
Second.
And could we get the topic of that executive session?
It's that Title 42 or whatever.
The
Title 14.
collective no negotiations pursuant to, yeah, okay.
Go on.
Pursuant to Article 14 of the Civil Service Law.
You got it.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Hearing no objections, meeting adjourned to executive session.
Are we going into the conference room?